Okay, we're live. Yeah, you want to go?
Oh, here you go. Pull this down. I just grabbed my trunk. I know this works. I tested it.
All right, so this is going to record separate audio.
Hey, man. Hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. Wow, that's amazing technology. This is Chris, catch.
1, 2, check 1, 2. Yeah.
Is it work? Oh, see, and I purposely took some time to. Anyone else? Anybody ready to catch? No, shaking it off. Ready? Want it? All right.
Oh, who am I? Where's it going to? Oh, it's loud.
It's like pretty well balanced too. Nice. Very bright.
And I appreciate you bringing covered beverage just for this eventuality. Oh, let's.
You're going to stand or we'll adjust.
All right. No, I'm not going to. Well, it's we've got two SM. Here we go. We got two SM7Bs, so I imagine we'll have we've got two performers at a time, so we'll have them sit down. Also, this is live right now, so if you want to pull the third slider down, this should not go. The third slider all the way down. There we go. That did it. Okay, whatever you did. So that way, whenever they want audience engagement, they can pick up and throw. Or if they want to hit somebody, yeah. All right. You're right. The couch is very deep. I don't want to. I feel like I'm in the Middle East. They're like, no, I can't show my souls to people. All right. That's for the nighttime show. Ba-dum-bump.
Okay. Oh, that would be nice because then you can do like.
Does that look better for the? There we go.
Or we don't have to.
Awesome. There's Bobby
Good.
Blackwolf.
Now we look very. So now do we look more professional?
Now the Bobby Blackwolf is here. Definitely, we look more professional.
I was personally thinking of the organ seat, but
there we go.
Whatever.
Yep.
Yo, do that. That's right. There you go.
I gotta front the logo there.
All right. So welcome. At some point.
You know what? It is 10 after. We've got nearly a dozen people in here. So we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm going to wait for
a nod.
You know, I bet he's putting that in and listening to the stream. See?
Look at that.
And listening to the stream. Yeah. shows to intro people, but since things are running a little late, we're just going to dive right into it. So our first show that we have is Manny Faces with
Okay.
Hip Hop Can Save America. So let's give it up for Manny.
Woo!
And since we have to sit down to do this introduction, we're gonna take a pause. We'll swing these out like we're in a carny roller coaster thing and let them sit down. So
Okay.
give us
here
a
you go.
moment, everyone.
Okay.
And we'll
Thank
have
you again
Manny.
for being here.
Thank you. Yes. We got to introduce ourselves. Oh well.
Let's do it. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. All right.
Oh man,
So it's gonna take me a minute to sound. So
Yeah.
we were worried about everything else. I didn't get that set.
no worries. I will take my time.
I think that was fine.
It was, but you didn't open it, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, then get that off of there.
Yeah, I'm gonna call you up. We got a whole thing planned here. Very professional. You let me know.
I just chat with him. It's gonna take a hot second.
Yeah, no worries, no rush. I'll open the show with some of my crack stand-up comedy. Nope, not my thing. Huh? Nah, I can't. I'm much more like, like on the fly funny, not like planned funny. There's a difference. I did take improv. Anyone take improv classes? That's fun. I had a good time. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. But I think it prepares you. Yeah, but it prepares you for moments when you have to sit here and wait for Charles, and what else to do.
1/8 inch to 1/4 inch.
I might in my bag. That's the headphone adapter for DJs. I might have that in my bag. I don't think so. Who knows? I don't know anything. Oh, you want me to sing? I do not got that either. Check. Oh, yeah, it does work. That's cool.
There it is. Got it.
I'm a big fan of over the shoulder.
Do you want me to look at you with my blue steel pose, or no? Okay.
Well, I caught it.
All right, gotcha. That's all we need. Nice.
All right, let's see if this works.
Check 1, 2.
About hip hop
Check.
today is it's smart, it's insightful. The way that they can communicate a complex message in a very short space.
Cool. We got sound now.
All right. Sound is good. Sound is helpful.
Thank you.
All
All
right.
right. You ready?
Yeah. I'll tell you.
That's your- that's your
That's my intro. I'll tell you when to rock it. How about that?
That sounds great to me.
All right. I guess we can go. Other than that, we're good.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's all for me, folks. Thanks for your time. Anyone else next? My time is up. Peace and love, everybody. My name is Manny Faces. That's not, for those who don't know me, not my government name, obviously. My real name is Bobby Elbows. So thank you. I'll be here all afternoon. Well, I run a show. I do a lot of work in the podcast industry, and I just want to thank, first of all, Mark and everyone involved with Jam ATL for putting this together. Number one, 800 East Studios, 800 East Studios, right? Got it. I went to 799 East Studios, and it was just not the same. You guys are really, I'm glad you know. So just thanks for putting this thing together. For several years, I've put on a show that's called Hip Hop Can Save America. That's my baby. I've worked on a number of shows that have been to some acclaim, but this is my baby. The idea behind it is that we talk to, generally speaking, I talk to people who are using hip hop music and culture in innovative, inspiring, and sometimes surprising ways that can help improve society and uplift humanity. So not just entertainment stuff. You may know this already about hip hop, and you might be like, yeah, Manny, great. Thanks for actually telling people about it. You may not know this about hip hop, and that's the kind of people that I love, because you will probably walk away here with at least a little bit of a different perspective than you might have come in with. That's my spiel. I'll tell you who I'm talking to and I'm bringing up in a second. But why don't you? I made it and it took time. So why don't we play the intro? Let's play the theme song.
The thing about hip hop today is it's smart. It's insightful. The way that they can communicate a complex message in a very short space is remarkable. And a lot of these kids, they're not going to be reading the New York Times. That's not how they're getting their information.
My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Hop culture is more than music. Peace to you, and speak the truth. Show what peace can do when there is to you. My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live.
So hip hop didn't invent anything, but hip hop reinvented everything.
Thank you. One time, make some noise just for yourselves for being here tonight. This is hip hop, so make some goddamn noise. Let's get up. This is my first time doing a live show. We do a live stream every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you like what you hear tonight, you can visit me virtually every Monday night. But this is the first time I've ever done something in person like this. So let's just hope that we get through it. One of the segments that I do on the show when I do the live stream very often is a segment that I like to call Hip Hop News that isn't about dumb shit. Okay. So we're going to go through a few news items that you might or might not have heard about that, kind of reflect the ethos of the show. To help me get through this segment, let me introduce my guest for the day. This man is an artist. He's a rapper. He's a beat-making producer, a record label executive, and most aligned with what I tend to talk about on the show, he's an educator and an author. He's lived all over, including some very quality time down here in the A. He's performed around the world. He's collaborated with greats like the late MF Doom, with Blue and Exile, and many, many brilliant independent and underground artists that you might not have heard of, but probably should. Some may know him as Lil Psy of Science of Life, some as JR, but I've known him for a while as an insightful, talented, multi-hyphenate who's always down for a good discussion about this music and culture that we love. And I know him now, coincidentally, as a pretty close neighbor. So since we're in Atlanta, and since it's the first in-person version of Hip Hop Can Save America, it just made sense to bring up my man, give it up, my man, my mellow, John Robinson. Look at that, walkout music and everything. This is a microphone, by the way. We're going to use this for y'all, so y'all going to have to say something about some things. We're going to try to work y'all into the mix as well. What up, John?
Yo, I'm feeling great. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing well. Isn't this exciting?
It is. This is actually pretty cozy. This is pretty cozy. Yeah.
Nice. It's intimate.
Yeah.
So as you know, because you've been on the show, but you were kind of like a last minute guest. We were like talking about something of the moment, and I don't like to always talk about like what's in the news, because a lot of it is about the entertainment side of things, and we do try to stretch the limits of what we talk about, which we'll go into today. But I do have this segment called Hip Hop News that isn't about dumb shit.
Absolutely.
And so I figured I'd invite you on to give your 2 cents about a couple of news items that I wanted to share with the good people of 800 East Studios that are here for the Pod Jam ATL. Get down, shall we?
Absolutely.
See, if I talked about what was in the news lately, I'd be talking about, Drake and Kendrick, right? And we've heard enough about, but okay, just by a little noise, fans of Drake? Ooh. Fans of Kendrick Lamar?
Jeez.
I gotta tell you something.
He even won here. Jeez.
I know. I gotta tell you something. But here's something I think we can universally agree on. Fans of Wu-Tang Clan? Right. So you may or may not have heard, of course, the Wu is going on their final tour. They're doing a farewell tour. You didn't know this, Eric? You look like, what, Manny? You just broke my heart in the first 5 minutes of your stupid show. The Wu-Tang Clan is going on their final tour. You knew this. You heard this?
I did know this, yes.
They are going, it's called Wu-Tang Forever, the Final Chamber, the last tour, the biggest road tour that it's undertaken, which will begin in June. ATLians, June 11th at State Farm Arena. So get your tickets now. They went on sale a couple days ago. It will have the entire Wu-Tang Clan. Have you ever seen the Wu perform?
In entirety, no.
No one has.
ODB
It's
was
like-
missing. Yeah.
Okay, even after that, I mean, like I did it too, but then they had ODB's son
Yeah.
kind of take his place, but it still wasn't everybody. So according to RZA, who just did an interview with the New York Times, which is really worth watching or listening to, and also I think he did or he'll be on like tonight on Stephen Colbert on Late Night with Stephen Colbert, said everyone's down. Everyone's going to be there. They've made all the arrangements, all the hard-headedness or whatever, but this will be the last tour. Where'd you see him?
I think it's amazing. I saw him in Germany actually at the Splash Festival,
Okay.
and it allowed
was
me
that
to
in water?
understand. No, it was.
Okay.
It was near the water.
Okay, that makes
in
sense.
Leipzig, Germany. But it allowed me to understand that we love Wu-Tang here, but in Germany and Japan, it's like a religion. Like seriously, yeah. Put it like this: the crowd was so thick. Method Man, he didn't stage dive; he stage walked across the crowd.
Oh.
Like literally, he could walk across the crowd, and they held him up. And yeah, it was just like amazing to see 30,000 people go in for Wu-Tang.
Wow. I think Jones
Yeah.
Beach Amphitheater in New York, I saw, which is not 30,000 people, by the
Yeah.
way. Anyone see a Wu-Tang show? Anyone been to one or everyone visited? What were your thoughts about? Here, take the mic. No, you can do this. Check it out. That was, it's my first time throwing an in-live podcast mic.
You get to run and catch it too.
Yeah.
Saw them open for Rage Against the Machine in the 90s.
Oh, that was a big tour for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Sound was, it was opening band, so the sound wasn't great. Probably 40 people on stage.
Wow.
That's about right. That's how they roll. Yeah. First time they would come around. Yeah. First time they would come around. Come on now. Hey. First time they come around New York, we were like in the underground clubs. And they would just mob the stage. They'd all have like ski masks on. You thought, well, we're getting robbed. It's fine. This is New York. This is hip hop. And then it's like, no, then they start rocking their songs. And it's like the grittiest, nastiest, dopingest shit we ever heard.
It became a metaphor for having too many people on stage.
That's right. They set the
they're
stage.
Wu-Tanging it. Like, no, really.
Take your entourage off the stage. So anyway, it's news. It is big news. They're quite a legacy in music, not just in hip hop, of course.
Oh yeah.
And again, just the two interviews you might want to look at were the New York Times. It's the New York Times Popcast podcast. If you follow them, which I have issues with them sometimes, but I'm not going to say that publicly. Oh damn it. With their coverage of hip hop at the New York Times, but this was worthy, and again on Stephen Colbert. So that's the kind of thing we will talk about if it's timely and if it's newsworthy, not just like another win for Kendrick. I don't want to run out of time. I'm such a talker. I was in my daughter's school the other day for Black History Month. Right, they were doing a program. And she sings the choir, and they did, Lift Every Voice, and it was really dope. And they had like African dance and drummers rocking, and it was super dope. But they had like the kids doing like reading, Rosa Parks was, like doing like the, and one of them, and so they were giving tributes to like obviously really important and famous folks throughout Black history, and then they were doing part about artists, and so she was like about Beyonce, and she was like, Beyonce always gives us empowerment, and through all the music that she does, let's give it up for Beyonce, and everyone was like yeah, and she's like, and then Kendrick Lamar, and all the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders started screaming when she said Kendrick Lamar, like the way y'all did, but y'all were like Drake, crickets, motherfucker. And then, so there's something to be said for cultural,
totally.
Yeah, there's something happening there. We good so far? Yeah, we're all right. All right. So I wanted to pick a couple Atlanta stories, and I don't want to talk too long because I want to talk to Jay about his illustrious career as well. This is interesting because we talk about intersections a lot on this show. So it's the intersection of hip hop and X, right? So it might be, education is a huge one. Mental health therapy is another favorite area I talk about. There are legitimate intersections in these worlds. Science and technology, the fine arts, politics and social justice, business and entrepreneurship. Hip hop has some tie into these things that, again, are not just based in the entertainment world. One of them that's interesting, and I've talked to some folks about it on the show, is the confluence. Right, that's the right word. That's a real word. Between hip hop and religion and spirituality. And one thing that was cool because it happened in Atlanta. You hear about like hip hop as like me mixing the gospel and in the Black church and that kind of thing, and that makes sense. Obviously, you don't hear about it so much in the Catholic Church because they're a little bit more laid back and not all loud and rambunctious. But at the Lighthouse Catholic Center here in Atlanta, which services HBCUs in the area, they had a thing called the Hip Hop Mass, which is a hip hop musical, musical tribute, what do you call it? Praise and dedication, praise and devotion. But it was in a Catholic church, and it was put together really well. Kevin P. Johnson is a composer. He's a Grammy-winning composer. Proposer. Let's get awards for proposing. I would have got an award for proposing. Their marriage didn't last, but the proposal was top notch. Anyway, so it's really cool. You can see it on video. And again, it's just another intersectionality that's happening where, and we've talked about this on the show. Well, not you and me, but the show and me have talked to people that recognize or like to point out a lot of virtues in the roots of hip hop, the ethos of hip hop. Hip hop is formed on a few pillars. One of them is peace, love, unity, and having fun. So if you have an impression of hip hop music and culture that might be delivered because of the industry or what you might see in media, you have to understand it literally started with the ethos of peace, love, unity, and having fun. Everything else is something on top of that and to the side of that and maybe bastardized by it. But so spirituality is very much have those same kind of core ethos. Be good to the next person, inclusivity. What culture do you know, JR, that, you know, throughout the world, that you've been around the world, is more inclusive and welcoming as a come as you are culture than hip hop?
I don't think I've come across any scenario that brought people together more.
Right.
Different types of people.
Right.
Hip hop doesn't care about religion, creed, color, race, school of thought. It just wants you to come as your full, complete self. Be who you are.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're the quirky kid in the middle of nowhere, be that.
That's right.
Hip hop.
We'll take it.
And then also understand that when we're saying hip hop, especially us, right? When we say hip hop, we're leading with culture, not music. So we're talking about the cultural nuances and the things that connect to people. And that's why we're bringing up these different things, because they connect to young people so brilliantly. And we watch hip hop do the work of pretty much all the work that the pushback says it can't in every other industry. And we want to see it more in education because we know it's a magical thing. But we'll talk more about that later.
Definitely sooner than later. We got two more quick stories. Thank you, brother. Speaking of, again, Atlanta, I want to pick out something in Atlanta. You were at it. I didn't even know this when I picked the story. So in New York City, they're building a hip hop museum. Okay. Big project, taking many, many years, millions and millions of dollars. They're behind schedule, which is very hip hop. But
yes.
But what they're doing now is they're doing pop-ups. It's a museum. They're also kind of doing seminars and pop-up shops. So they've gone around. They've been here to Atlanta before, showing off some, what do they call artifacts of you know,
the exhibits.
Yeah, exhibits. They did one here in Atlanta. I went to. It was really good. And one of the things they're doing is they're also working with some intersectionality. So they just came and did a webinar, not a webinar, a seminar, mixer, teaching financial literacy to young folk, right? So again, it's a connection you wouldn't normally think of when you say, you know, hip hop music and culture. It's like, yeah, I'm getting rich and putting all this money in my pocket. I got all this. No, young people, you're not going to be rich, you know, but you should know how to save and invest and do all the things that, you know, you may not be getting taught in school. So when you have the appeal, the razzle dazzle of hip hop heads, producer Zaytoven, Mike Will Made It was there. Who else was there that you remember or that was notable?
DJ Jelly.
Okay.
Who else was there?
So some Atlanta, folks that would bring
some Atlanta folks, a lot of education, EDU folks in the building. Kelly Glow was there.
Okay.
I'm forgetting, but
no, it's fine. That's good enough.
Definitely well attended.
They didn't pay us to talk about this. You don't have to remember everybody. They didn't sponsor this show, although you can hit us up at hiphopcansaveamerica.com. But anyway, so again, it's this sort of thing, and I can give you about 100 examples of these kind of intersections. In fact, there's an organization called Pockets Change. You know those folks, Dialect and them. They were on the show as well. They also use hip hop, and again, here's the thing: when we say using hip hop, right? Sometimes it's the music, but sometimes it's the mentality.
Yes.
Right. So I'm looking at Pockets Change, and they actually have they do workshops. They go into schools. You could actually hire them to, like, maybe you're a community center and you work with young people and you want to get the idea of financial literacy out. You can hire them, and their little framework here starts with buy-in conversations, aka create the cipher. And if you know hip hop, you know that it's a cipher. Yeah, hell yeah. Oh God, I hit something.
What does financial literacy and quitting smoking have in common?
And quitting smoking have in common?
Increases your fine.
I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Time horizons. How do you teach time horizons to kids?
Time horizons. JR?
Well, I'm still stuck on the riddle.
Yeah, time horizons meaning what is it? You're not smart. What does that mean? You sound educated.
Well, no, it's I'm sorry.
I'm smart.
It's
smart. I'm
it's like getting to see beyond like the immediate future for
Yeah.
like an adolescent or something, thinking 30 years in the future.
Okay.
know? And I think for a lot of people, it requires them to get to a point where they're like, oh, wait, 20, 30 years is actually not a lot of time.
right.
Yeah.
And I think by the time a lot of people reach that point, it's like, too late for them to save enough to retire and maintain their lifestyle.
Yep.
Yep.
And
like with quitting smoking, it's like, okay, by that point, maybe the damage is already done.
Interesting. Got you. Okay. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Wow. Okay. Got it.
You got some thoughts?
I do.
Okay. Because you work with young folks specifically.
Yeah. And I feel like one of the ways is definitely, I know it sounds cliche, but meeting them where they are and using those examples. And when you were speaking, I thought about times when I entered classrooms where, they said, oh, these students are not great researchers. These students, they don't really know geography like that. They don't know outside of their communities. But then when I start talking about people and things they knew about, they knew where everyone was from and what part of the country or what other country or what country this food comes from, blah, 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 right? But then when I start thinking about legacy and time, someone that worked well, this is 10 years ago now in the classroom, but someone who worked well for that was an artist like Lil Wayne, right? Because he's someone who started at 14 and was still relevant. And when we were talking about time and legacy and years in the game, when I pointed to Lil Wayne, he superseded their time, but he also was very relevant to where they were now. So they were able to look back and kind of use that as a measuring tool of saying, wow, he's the young OG. And that's where kind of that reference comes from, where you're doing things at a young age that are pretty prolific and next level, right? And you take it to a level where you're consistent for 20 years, but you're only, 30 at this point. And you get to actually be that example for young people because you're still in that space. So that's one way that I have done it. And I love that just thought of time horizons, critical thinking, and just thinking beyond your present because it's important.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
It's the meeting them where you are, bringing the things that we know that they would listen to the lesson a little bit better than, if we come on now. Oh yeah. All right. Better than the Chiefs. So, I don't care about football, but that was funny. There was a few years ago, speaking of sports, LaMelo Ball, I think, who's, a young athlete and kind of the younger generation, made some waves because he said that Nas, who's one of the great OGs of the game, or a great lyricist, just a, famous dude, wasn't relevant anymore. Yeah. And so all the OGs were like, yo, how could you say that about Nas? And of course he's relevant. He just dropped, an album. And I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, these kids don't listen to it. It's not on the radio. He's not relevant to them musically at that time, which is okay, because the real lesson is that Nas is relevant in that he is not just a well-regarded rap artist. Nas is a venture capitalist. Okay. Yeah. Nas runs an organization called Queensbridge Venture Partners. Hi, people up there. Yes. Where y'all come from? What's up? All right. Y'all got the penthouse suite view. I love it. Yes. So Nas is a venture capitalist. Like, he's parlayed his career, which is X amount of years in hip hop. He actually made a resurgence in the last few years, which isn't normal to be a 40, 45-year-old rapper still, out there doing the damn thing. But he's parlayed that into the next level of his career. Totally. So when you show them that, like, hey, he's extremely relevant, but here's why. He took his money, he took his investments, and so when you put it in those terms and use these kind of examples, it's a little bit more real because they're from where they're from. They were young like they were, so like just using those connections.
Yeah. Even the example of, right, he spent 25 years signed to a major label, Columbia Records. Yeah. Gets out of his deal and wins his first Grammy with the album he owns on his label. Right. So
right.
Things
even
like
from
that.
The business standpoint, like own your own, like that's
beyond relevant.
Yeah. So examples like that. And so, like I said, that's the thing of kind of making these connections. And lastly, I know we got to, I want to take up too much time because, we only have a limited amount of time, and obviously I'll talk forever. That leads to the intersection, and it really touches that directly, is the mental health therapy aspect of this. So obviously it's a whole subject to deal in. I thought we might have a video. I was going to play a clip from a news story. but look it up yourselves. There are so many programs. I've talked to 5 or 6 people that are mental health professionals that do the same kind of thing. They found a way as a conduit. They use the music. A lot of us are from the music, but it's not the same music. Like we don't, but a lot of times we turn away from that when we listen to young people. Hip hop is much more than any other genre of music, in that you really do talk about your life in the music. Right. A lot of it is embellishment and, you're trying to, be someone who you're not, etc. But a lot of times it's not. There's an old funny, not so funny thing that older hip hop fans will say. They'll literally say this. They'll say, man, we used to rap about selling drugs, and all these kids now, they rap about taking drugs.
Damn.
And I'm like, well, the former was better. but okay. I know what you're trying to say. The implication there is that the kids are soft. They make these songs about, taking, self-medicating and, smoking up and drinking. And I'm like, hey, I don't like their music sometimes either. But if my son or daughter is relating to an artist that is talking about self-medication and vulnerability and depression, well, that's something that we don't get from our kids very often.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to just downplay his taste in music. I'm going to maybe take him to a therapist, or be like, hey man, what's the matter? What's wrong? Why do you listen to this song? What's connecting? What connection are you making here that I, as a parent or as a teacher or as an educator or just a community member, need to know about? So it's giving us this real specific way to tap into what our young people are thinking. And if we just be like, your music sucks, I'm going back to listen to Backspin on Sirius, and when we lose that, we're missing that opportunity. So we like to encourage that to our teachers, our school counselors. And it's not just theory. I've spoken to, people, I know people, Dr. Ian Levy, Dr. Raphael Travis wrote a book called The Healing Power of Hip Hop. JC Hall, who's featured in this NBC story that we were going to play, that we're not going to play, but that you can go home and play just over the weekend, about hip hop therapy and how effective it is. The other thing is that you might think this might be only effective in communities of color or, Black and brown communities. And no, although it's well suited for that, and that those are the communities that have been traditionally underserved, underprivileged, under-resourced, and underloved. So it should be prioritized there. But let me tell you something, y'all white people, y'all kids listen to hip hop too, right? They know this stuff. They're talking the same stuff. They're listening. They know what people are like, I didn't understand a word Kendrick said. Your kids do. So again, don't miss this opportunity that's being given to you by the music that has this cultural undervibe that undervibe. Undervibe. That's good. It's good. If it's never used before, I'm trademarking that. Hold on. It has this undervibe to it, right? That we are missing out if we don't make these connections. So that's the work that I do, trying to bring these connections to the public. How am I doing here with y'all doing that? Is that all right? We're doing all right? Cool. Now, less about my voice and more about my man, my mellow, John Robinson, if you wouldn't mind. By the way, I have a newsletter. Most of y'all got a card. If you didn't hit me up, I have a newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks where I curate stories like this. So if you're like, yeah, Manny, whatever, 4 stories, whatever, hip hop can save America. And I'm like, no, I'll give you 400. If you just remember New York, you give me 20 minutes, I'll give you the world. I was at 10 wins. You give me 22 minutes. You give me a newsletter subscription and I'll give you the world. And when I say hip hop can save America, we won't get political, but what I really mean is that there's ways to make us better as a whole, individually, communities, and then cross-culturally, cross-communities. And these are examples of how you can do that. So that's kind of where we're getting at. There's more to it. We'll talk about that offline. JR, yes, John sir. Robinson, my man, my mellow. So we've got a little hint about, the fact that you've traveled the world and you've worked with kids. So let's start sort of at the now and go back a little bit, if you don't mind.
Totally.
You're a musician, you're a producer, you're a rapper. I think you also are a airplane pilot and a psychic. So we'll try to get to everything.
Yes.
In terms of rapping and beat making, hip hop stuff, so we're here to talk about. What's your most current project, and that you tell people about? Hey, what do you do?
Yeah, most currently released in December 24, album called Sincerely JR. And what's different about this project specifically is I decided to not release it on streaming platforms and do more of a direct-to-consumer, buy it from my website, come to me. And the reason for that is I have hundreds of songs on streaming that you could check out, catalog, etc. But I don't want to be tone deaf to what I'm seeing and hearing, just industry wise. Streaming platforms are not being fair to creatives, etc. So I'm just playing my part and being forward thinking to share with other peers like, yo, let's carve our lane back to our own platforms, our own digital real estate. Tell people what your website is. These platforms that we promote on may go away. Get back into your email correspondence. So really it's a call to say, I'm tapping back into nurturing and curating the people who are paying attention instead of looking over their heads trying to find new people.
Yeah, that's dope. It's a pivot that you need to take, but
it's a pivot.
Yeah. So again, this is certainly not the capstone. You're not retiring like the Wu-Tang Clan, but this is where you are now. Where did it all start for you? How far back does this go? You're only like 28 years old. Like, how far have you been going back and doing this work?
It goes back far. Long story short, 10 years old, 5th grade. A good friend of mine. I used to go to his house all the time, play video games, eat pancakes. One day his parents come to the school and I'm thinking he's in trouble. See them in the office and then they come in, they pull the little cart in with the VHS tape and they put a tape in, and it's his parents that I've known for probably 3 years at this time. And they're playing this tape and I see them on stage in Japan, on stage in Australia, on stage in these different international locations. And I remember just staring at them like, wow, this is what you do when you're not making pancakes? This is crazy. So I didn't realize until later that did something to me in a way that was just like, wow, these are real people. And it wasn't starstruck more than it was inspiration. But long story short, their son taught me how to write. He taught me how to count bars. The first time we ever performed on stage was 10 years old. And it didn't mark me as saying, oh, I'm going to do this forever. I'm a performer. No, it marked as, wow, you're the shyest kid in the world. And now you have a superpower to communicate with and make you cool.
Yeah.
So, next year I had all the girls and it was just chilling from that. But no, being serious.
No, that's serious what happened to me. So I believe it.
No, it was that early of me learning a love for just writing and storytelling. It wasn't really about rapping yet or making songs. It was just, how can I use my imagination to storytell? So even then, right? Salute and rest in peace to my grandfather. He showed me so many movies and TV shows that I probably shouldn't have saw at such a young age, but it gave me perspective. So I'm in 5th grade writing things about Miami and I'm like, how am I knowing about it? Miami Vice and just all these TV shows and films, and I'm creating these stories, and soon they developed to poetry.
Yeah.
And the story continues.
Yeah. You grew up where?
I grew up in the Bronx and Queens.
Okay.
So South Bronx and Far Rockaway.
So
Queens,
you were in the
New York.
midst of, hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When did it turn into sort of, so there's some of y'all know this. The question that a lot of people ask, when did you fall in love with hip hop? Right. It's from the movie Love and Basketball, or which one was it?
Love and Basketball.
Yeah, Love and Basketball. So when was that?
Brown Sugar.
Brown Sugar.
Brown Sugar.
Thank you. I knew I was wrong. I just didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. When did
don't
I
yell at me.
fall in love with hip hop? That's a tough question, just because I've been around it as long as I can remember. But the moment that I think of most is a song by Curtis Blow called AJ Scratch. And it just had this chant, AJ. And what connected me to it, I'm a young kid at the time, maybe 6, 7 years old, but I'm from the Bronx. In the first sentence, up in the Bronx where the people are fresh. It was one DJ. And it was just like, yo, we in the Bronx, we in the boogie down, we fresh.
Right.
And it just gave a certain pride. And the Bronx back then, as many stories you hear about how dangerous it was and crazy, the beauty of it was community. So if you were a part of that community, as many dangers as there were, everyone knew each other. So you couldn't just be the little kid doing dirt up the street because it would get back home. And you felt that sort of community. But yeah, AJ Scratch.
Interesting.
That did something to me.
That was the one.
Yeah, that was the one.
So I grew up in Long Island, so I'm right outside of the city. So we were like a half step behind everything, right? It was the same thing. I used to go to my man Craig house every Friday and Saturday. Here's the thing with early hip hop, like in the 80s, even in New York City, you could only listen to hip hop on the radio,
Yes.
rap music, you know, from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Friday and Saturday nights. That was it. Chuck Chill Out and Molly Mall on BLS, Red Alert on Kiss FM.
Yeah.
So you had to take
Mr.
your cassette.
Magic.
Cassettes are these little plastic pieces that you record music on, sort of like your MP3. Okay, an MP3 player is this digital. So you'd have to tape your music like during those 2 hours, those 3 hours, and that's what you would play for the rest of the week. And so it was religion. You had there with your little unopened, or you tape over your last week's or whatever, and you would record. So that was like the kind of work you had to put into it. So we would go at my man Craig's house, and they had a basement, and he had a ColecoVision, so right, video games, right? ColecoVision was it anyway. The old video game system, and we would listen to, you know, usually Red Alert, and we listen to the music, and so that was where we started. Now it was around, but that was like our, you know, nighttime.
Totally.
You know, that was our thing, and it was My Melody, Rakim.
Got it.
Was the song
Got
that
it.
kind of like, you know, there was been music,
Oh, yeah.
but when you hear that and like the sonics of it, if you ever listen to, you know, Rakim, My Melody, it doesn't sound like any hip hop song that came before it or any hip hop song that came after it. And it was one of these things where my dad was a jazz and blues connoisseur. He grew up in Newark, New Jersey. So I knew I was listening to Count Basie. I was listening to, you know what I mean? Like we were listening to music, but I didn't have that soul. He didn't get into that soul influence, a lot of doo-wop and early R&B. But when I heard this, I was like, oh, this no one's made a thing that sounds like this before. And it kind of took over.
Agreed.
You know, wordplay, also Rakim being a very poetic rapper, someone who, you know, just transcended the art form and made it into a different thing. My dad was a sociology professor, so I knew words, right? And so when you hear Rakim doing something new musically and doing something new verbally and linguistically, it was like, this is a thing. This is something different. So that was my moment anyway. So, you know, just to share. Yours, since you want to yell things out from the top, when did you fall in love with hip hop, Brown Sugar? Tell me.
When I listen to Manny's podcast, you know?
Well, there you go. I like it.
Perfect.
I paid extra for that response. Tell me about how that transcended into a career. We got, I don't know how much time we got, like, you know, I think we have a little time left. Tell me how you had a long, luxurious career. The word I was looking for was illustrious, but luxurious works. You've traveled the world. Like I said, you've worked with some big names. You've worked with a lot of, you know, independent and underground artists that are, you know, fantastic and probably should have been big names. What are some highlights from your career? When did you start like making records, some of the tour stuff, notable things that have happened in your life? Besides seeing Wu-Tang in the ocean in Germany.
Splash.
Yes.
You know,
doing your work.
The best way to answer that question is relationships and affiliations and connections and networking, right? My career in music professionally started with going to an open mic to give a tape to Bobbito Garcia.
Yeah.
Just simply for him to play it on the radio. Because when Stretch wasn't at the radio show, Bob wasn't a DJ yet. So he would play tapes on the radio.
Right. The other thing is college radio was super instrumental for early propagation of hip hop music. Because again, if it wasn't 10 to 2 Monday, Friday and Saturday, it could be Wednesday. I think Stretch and Bobbito was like midnight to 5 in the morning on Wednesday on Columbia radio station, the college.
89 Tech 9.
Yeah. So there you go. So you were trying to get on.
No, that's the thing. 100%. I just wanted play the tape on the radio. 2 weeks later, he calls back wanting to do a record. And at first, we didn't even know what to do with that. We like, a record? What? So long story short, that set us off. But the beauty was he had such an international following. That one move took us from the New York tri-state area to flying overseas and starting to get, you know, traction internationally. And I think just more connections, the Lyricist Lounge, Rest in Power, MF Doom. You know, we did a lot here. You know, in 2000, my group Science of Life, we moved from Jersey at the time to Noonan, Georgia, in a 3,500 square foot loft. And the whole mindset was we knew that the music we were doing, the scenes we were a part of and connected to were happening here in the South, but no one lived here. No one stationed here from up there doing it regularly and intentionally going to the Carolinas and, you know, Louisiana and all these Southeast locations around ATL Metro to actually connect and network and build our thing. And more so in Noonan, what we were doing, we were tucked away in this loft, and literally every day we worked our creativity like a 9 to 5. So whatever your expertise were, if you're on the beats, you're on that. If you're on website development or, retail telephone calls or calling DJs, whatever it was, that's what you did. So I think that is really what kind of got us in it, like started our career going. And we knew from then that being independent didn't mean just, oh, we're free to do whatever we want. It meant more work. It meant falling in love with this thing and becoming so passionate that it didn't feel like work and that you were able to just pour in. And as much as, sometimes when you think about being an entrepreneur or being independent, it sounds like you're going to work less, but that's not real. I think it's more about, it feels less because you're more passionate about it. You're pouring into you. And I tell people all the time, if you've lived enough life, just think and imagine if you poured into your thing as much as you poured into other people's, what that outcome could be like. So that was some of our thinking then. And we had just some dope mentors and people who were helping us think forward. And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. And obviously, again, years of touring. And you're right. I looked at your band camp and you have 50 or 60.
25 countries.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
25 countries and counting. And
you were just overseas performing
just overseas.
Recently.
Yeah. Just in Paris, Luxembourg, and Berlin.
Yeah.
But the reason I said the number is because by the time I got to about 19, 20 different places I've been to in the name of music and culture, I started to realize that it's changing who I am as a person. It's gaining me this perspective that I didn't tangibly hold on to before, and these last several trips, I mean, I've did things intentionally, like, climb the mountain, put your feet in the ground, breathe the air, and just look and be grateful, so each one of those trips teaches me something else.
Yeah, we talk to young artists all the time. Also, like, you don't have to be the superstariest of superstars to do the thing you love, get paid, travel the world, go see the things,
exactly,
and not have to,
Yeah, this world's a huge place. I mean, it's a small world, but it's huge at the same time. And I feel like if you're doing something that you're passionate about, even beyond music or something in that vein, I feel like it's important for you to live it out and be who you are while you're here, even if it's not for industry or, to be famous. It's like, me personally, I don't do this to be famous more than I do this to be free. Like, yeah.
Ooh, gems, bars. Yeah. You should try rapping. I think you'd have some things to say. Now, again, why we've gotten to so many great conversations. You're a great artist. I followed you. I knew of you back in New York before we crossed paths. But I think the time we crossed paths, you were getting into this intersection. And this is, one of the main reasons why we talk. A lot of good artists out there. I don't really talk to too many artists that are just doing their great artistry. But it's that intersectionality that always fascinates me. So you are a published author.
Yes.
You've written books and you've done workshops and you've done things in educational settings, doing the thing we talked about earlier, which is sort of merging the worlds of hip hop music and culture and education. Broadly speaking, because we don't have all day, but like broadly speaking, what does that look like? How did you make that pivot? And when did integrating your artistry into education, when did that start happening? And what did that look like?
Great question. And I'll keep it concise because that's a long path, but concisely 2010, I'm off a tour. I'm on a break. Good friend of mine was into working with young people, teaching skill sets around music, performance, recording, beat making, etc.
Yeah.
So tapping into that, I feel like I did that for a year and felt very rewarding and was like, oh, this is cool. That same friend, shout out to Chen Lo. He said, yo, you ever thought about teaching? Like, I was like, bro, I thought that's what we're doing. He's like,
right.
No, in an academic setting.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, that's not really what I do, man. I'm on the road. I ain't got time to be locked out. So long story short, there was several programs in New York City. There was a lot of super seniors, young people who couldn't pass the statewide exams to get out of high school. They were stuck in school. So they had all these programs of teaching artists, co-teaching with certified teachers to use hip hop culture, music, youth culture, current events, and anything that young people related to get them past these exams, right? And I feel like the first weekend, I probably cried in my car like every other day because, yeah, these kids were just
Badass kids.
brutal,
Yeah.
right? But then I learned that, you know what? They're brutal because they failed this thing like 12 times and they just don't believe they're broken, you know?
Yeah.
They have trauma from this. So I had to build that trust again. And I feel like that scenario made me fall in love with it. When I was able to get kids who barely came to school 8 o'clock in the morning at summer school ready to go, it was like, oh, wow, maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
And
was this Fresh Prep?
Fresh Prep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah.
I feel like 10 years after that.
I didn't know you were in Fresh Prep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned about from Rabbi Dockside.
Exactly.
Yes, I know
so
about
he was
it.
there before me. Yeah. So that got me in. And then it became more of a, not only is it solid working with the young people, but I feel like I got intel to share with the adults.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of teachers who necessarily were missing up. They were missing a lot of grand opportunities to connect with their
Like
students.
we were talking about before.
Exactly.
Yeah. And not to interrupt you, but the Fresh Prep, I know this, guys. I cite it when I do my talks.
Yeah.
Something like of all the kids that like failed this thing multiple times, Regents exams from New York. You remember Regents exams?
Yeah.
Like 70-something% then went on to pass.
Yeah.
After this program of integrating, rap lyrics and doing some of the cultural
Everything.
connections.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely phenomenally effective.
like think about if I was in class and I was entering in teaching world wars, I wouldn't talk about the war before I would talk about Kendrick and Drake and get it all out from that perspective and
Right.
then connect it to the wars.
Right.
And then they would seamlessly know how to speak about it, write about it, pass it on a test, etc.
That's right.
So that was the approach. And then fast forward, Dr. Jason Rawls, my partner, professor at The Ohio State University, we co-authored a book called Youth Culture Power. And it was really just teaching the adults. It's funny, we passed the book to people. They're like, oh, I got to get this for my kid. It's like, no, it's for you.
You.
The kids are fine. The adults need to catch up because
right.
we realize that the young people are the generators of culture. They're the ones who are bringing these new things into perspective. We wouldn't be OMG and LOL and SMH and if it wasn't for young people, right? So they're doing all these things and we wanted to point out that brilliance, but more so tap back to them to let them realize you got these cross-transferable skills that are powerful. Youth Culture Power.
Yeah. It's dope. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant book, not only for teachers, for parents.
Yes.
For anyone that has, youth in their charge. Old way
Mentors,
of saying things, right?
coaches.
Yes, 100%. And again, this is not theoretical, okay? And not to, you're a pioneer of this. Jay Rawls has been a guest on the show, by the way, so he's a former guest as well. But so have about 10 or 12 other hip hop educator types that have worked some of these things in their own different, way. So again, this is a book. This is you've done workshops, right? You've worked with schools.
Yeah,
you've taught other educators. You've educated educators.
Totally.
Yeah, and there's a network of educators. Actually, there's the Hip Hop Ed family. There's a whole consortium of educators that do this in schools all across the country. In all K through 12, in all of these with all these intersections. So it's again, if it's something that kind of whet your appetite and say, I want to learn more, but I'm a teacher. I know a teacher. I'm a parent, I'm a counselor, I work in a camp. These are things that, we hope that, you'll get a taste of and follow up with.
Totally.
Yeah. Real quick, we have a few minutes left. So real quick, there's so much to talk about with that. Again, if only we had a podcast and a newsletter and a Discord server, by the way, and a subreddit, and a book that's coming out in April. I'm just saying. It's not a very good book, but it should be good. So there's places to follow up and get more conversation. But for you personally, what's next for you? How can people stalk you, electronically and in public? What supermarket do you like to go to? But whatever, tell people whatever. All the end of interview things.
Yeah, DeKalb Farmers Market's my favorite.
Oh, it's a great place. That's great.
But no, what's next? Book. I'm actually finishing. I call it an audio book because I did that version first. It's called Keep It Moving, Yo. It's really just a motivation for creatives. Anyone doing creative work, entrepreneurial work. It's that man on your shoulder or woman on your shoulder whispering those good things in your ear, that positive self-talk. So that's next. Outside of that, I'm always traveling, always looking to connect and build and network. Being back new here in the ATL metro area, that's one of my goals too, is just to branch out more, connect more, find more of my tribe here.
Yeah.
Preferably even outside of music, because I feel like I got the music, folks.
Yeah, no, and we talk about all the time, you know, how much some of it's hidden in the cut, but like really good vibes musically, creatively in Atlanta. So it's just, you know, we're from New York, so every city sucks.
Yeah.
But Atlanta's okay. Like y'all all right. Like we're good. I'm gonna, I mean,
We're from New York. We just don't want to live there anymore.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
But I also want to say, if you want to find me, anyone who's listening and tuned in and you want to find me and connect, JohnRobinsonMusic.com or at John Robinson Music on social media.
Yeah. All right. Sounds very good. We will have a few, like 2-3 minutes left. You want to do with that thing?
Let's do that then.
All right. So I just want to thank y'all for listening, being here, especially here. Mark, everybody at Pod Jam ATL. Charles, thank you so much. Again, my name is Manny Faces. You can find me you can find the show at hiphopcansaveamerica.com. All those things I talked about, the newsletter, the Discord, the everything can be branched off from there. And if you like me personally, you could just pay me on the way out. I'll meet you at the door. Or you can go to mannyfaces.com. It's pretty easy to remember, and there aren't many things named Manny Faces, except for the He-Man doll. We're not going to talk about that because we don't want to get trademark violation. In the meantime, in between time, JR has been gracious enough to bless us with some of his lyrical prowess. Y'all down for that? You want to hear something real quick before we go? Let's go. We have an instrumental on there, sir.
ATL, how y'all feel? How y'all feel? Yes. Okay, let's get this right. Intimate vibes. Yo. The monarch of the dialogue, Grand Duke of the scripture, Prince of intense sentence. He paint pictures. Respect, loyalty, love, loyalty. Praise the wise people bringing incense and oils to me. Blessed. Passed down family background. Highest global, so no one refining this rap sound. Ruler of Zamunda, science of the Kuna, Leany, the wish minus the bottle. Let me hear y'all say whoa, oh, oh. Say yaga, yaga, yaga. Say why yo, louder why yo. Say more fire. Say more fire. Say freestyle. Say freestyle. Yo, live and direct freestyle, different places. Podcast jam, live and direct faces. John Robinson flows, he got a lot of them. 800 pieces, live in the places of peace. He didn't write it down, they had a pen, we stabbed him in the abdomen, and baffling around the world, he's traveling. Studying the music, confusing like Rubik's Couch, with all men, he studied on the topics. This is how we rock, yo. This is how we rock, over the top. This is how we go, live in the place, you know, and do it, yo. This is how we rock, off of the top. This is how we go, yo. It's like, whoa, oh, oh. Say yaga, yaga, yaga. Say why yo. Yo, visions of your majesty. Walking down the path of mastery. Mentally capture beats. Dapper peeps at shows. Salute and respect. Always remain fresh. In this culture we rep. The dialect Chris. That's the gift. Walking through pages like through pages I flip. Burn the sage in the live on stage. He gon' flip when they drop this gift. And make the people just rock like this. Hands up. Say oh, oh, oh. Say yaga, yaga, yaga. Say why yo. Say why yo. Say more fire. Say more fire. Say Pod Jam. Say ATL. My name is John Robinson. Peace, y'all. You're live in the place. Hip Hop Can Save America. Pod Jam ATL 800 East Studios. Peace.
Hey, y'all, appreciate y'all. My man. Best in the world. One more time, make some goddamn noise.
Well, how about that for warming up the audience? Excellent. Woo! Well, I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce some people that made today happen. If you couldn't tell, all the tickets were free. If you don't like the show, you get double your money back. And in order to make this free event happen, we had a lot of people volunteer their time and resources. So I want to thank a few of them right now. Well, first, I guess we'll start off with, you want to do the cash box?
I just want to borrow the cash box.
All right. Excellent. It's borrowed. I'll tell you what. First, I will go ahead and introduce Charles, because Charles is behind the cameras that are all moving around and making sure that the microphones are happening and everything. Charles, woo, excellent. Charles, without your help. Well, hello. Yeah, this wouldn't have happened without your guys' help. And because of you and because of DragonCon Digital Media Track, we're streaming on YouTube to a couple different channels. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And
Bye.
that's it. You want to introduce Tyra? And then we'll bring Tyra in?
No.
All right, no?
Hey, from Be Awesome Together and Geek Week Social, you got Tyra Burton.
All right. Excellent. Woo. Come on. I pulled the man from behind the panel there.
I'm short, and that was a long ways down.
Excellent.
You're so. Thank you.
Yeah, those stickers didn't last long, did they? Oh, the one did.
It's
Excellent.
still there, isn't it?
Okay, one is, one's not. Excellent. One's
Pod Jam is already drunk on the floor.
excellent. Well, I'm waiting, and I can hear Michael in the background cracking one open. Was that it? I love it. No, yeah, thumbs up, definitely.
We have
Appreciate
somebody
everyone for bringing it by.
2 coolers full. That's all.
No, the man came prepared. And in fact, I was like, Paula, I got to introduce you two together. So thank you for all the help that you've done in putting this together, and a lot of the social media and some of the digital design work, as well as telling me when I had a bad idea.
If you're sick of all the stories today, I'm sorry. Get over it.
Definitely. And Tyra, thank you so much for everything you've done to make Pod Jam ATL happen.
You are amazing. Don't you love these shirts?
Oh, well,
my gosh.
Thank you. Yeah, only 2 have been printed up so far. Again, this is all a proof of concept. My name's Mark Deal, by the way. I'm the organizer of Podcast Atlanta. We're an event of about woohoo. Yeah, I guess a few of you are.
Where are you guys besides Facebook?
Facebook,
You're
Meetup.
YouTube.
Or YouTube now because of Pod Jam ATL.
See,
Thank
we
you
kick
so
people
much.
into the future.
Exactly. So we've been around for 8 years. We got about 1,400 podcasters, and we get together for events where we teach things or just do social gatherings. But this is our first live podcast experience. And
you had a meetup here, didn't you?
we did have a meetup here. In fact, it was a Saturday just to see what it was like at this time of the week and this time of day, and it worked out well. Yeah. And now we're doing this event. So.
And this is a gem. 800 East Studios is amazing. Can't say enough good things about not only the space, but the people.
Exactly. And in fact, that's a good segue, Tyra. I'm going to have you give up the couch, and I'm going to bring up Thomas Avery. Everyone, because this great venue, 800 East Studios, I want to bring up Thomas, who's going to talk a little. Oh, come on. That's like bringing a puppy up here. That's no fair at all. Thomas, tell us a little bit about the space and a little bit about the studio.
Yeah. Well, my wife is here, and I was just gonna dump this baby to her, but she disappeared.
No.
So
Somebody give me a puppy, please. I need to compete.
He's pretty comfortable up here on the stage. So this is 800 East Studios. Thanks for coming, y'all. Welcome. We've been around for about 25 years or so, but we're going through a bit of a resurgence. We're going to relaunch essentially the studio later this year, this summer. And with that, we're renovating some rooms, we're creating some new spaces, and we're going to have about 4 or 5 commercial spaces to use for all kinds of recordings, podcasts included. So anybody out here, podcast creators, I'm assuming maybe all of y'all. But yeah, that's the gist. If you want to, learn more or talk to me, I'll be around all day, and check out our website, 800east.com.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for opening your studio, opening your space, and opening up your hearts and arms, especially your arms, because I saw you moving a lot of this stuff right before we were going live. So thank you for everything you've done, Thomas. Yeah. 800 East Studios. Check it out. And if you're not here, if you're watching this on stream, you got to come by and check out this place. This place is amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I've got one last person that I want to invite up. Thank you. You want to introduce him? No. I want to bring up Pat Fenner of Podcast Atlanta. Pat, thank you so much for everything you've done to help out with Podcast Atlanta and this event, Jam ATL, because we need every hand on deck, as well as I need somebody to tell me, Mark, that is a bad idea. And usually
Well,
it's you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I
You're
think.
welcome. No, I
It's a
appreciate
bad
it.
idea. Yeah. No, you've done the lion's share of the work, but this guy's amazing. I mean, he really is. He's got. Sorry, I know. And then he tells you he's an introvert, and listen to him, like whatever.
Oh, I am. I got to recharge after this.
I hear you. I hear you. But anyway, I want to encourage you to reach out to him and encourage him to do this again next year, and tell all your friends about it, because this is, like he was saying, this is a proof of concept kind of thing. But I don't know about you, but everybody enjoy yourself so far? Yeah. I mean, yeah, that first, that was an absolutely epic episode, and I learned so much, and I'm a new fan of hip hop.
Yeah, I am a fan of hip hop, and hip hop saves America. In fact, I got a chance to listen to the show and watch the show, Manny Faces, before. A few people applied to get on, and unfortunately, we couldn't squeeze everybody on. But it gave me a good idea for maybe a themed Jam ATL next time with perhaps video games and dice. Who knows?
Ooh,
We'll
I
see.
love it. I love
We'll see.
it.
A little
I love
foreshadowing there.
So just stay connected. Stay tuned, and I'm looking forward to our next episode. Actually, I mean the next
next event. Yeah. Oh yes, the next show. I see. That is a great segue. Of course, we are still here.
Yes, we're still here.
Thank you.
Yes, you're so
All right.
welcome.
Thank you for that, Pat, because I did want to introduce the next show. So the next show that we have is Your One Life by Kimyung Kim. And so I'm going to read his podcast description straight from Apple Podcasts. You want to win, achieve your dreams, and enjoy your life, but how? By learning from the experts who have dedicated their life's work to helping people improve their lives. Personal development is a phrase that usually garners a yawn. Yeah, right. That's not my microphone. Sorry about that. But Kimyung Kim is here to change that. He delivers each episode using performance art and keeps you hooked in as you learn life-changing information. It's time to laugh, learn, and level up with Your One Life. So I bring it up. Kimyung Kim with Your One Life.
I really need to change that, by the way. I didn't know you were going to read that. I'm like, oh, nobody reads that. But Mark Deal just did, so here we are. How's everyone doing today? Woo, woo. All right, here we are. Very cool. Well, my name is Kimyung Kim. I'm the host of Your One Life podcast. And this is my guest today, Miss Alex Pauley.
It's actually a doctor. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay. All right.
Didn't go to school for 10 years.
Sorry. I forgot about that part, but here we are. Good deal. Good deal. So, cool. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Ooh. We're going back to the future. Here we are. Boom. 88 miles per hour. Let's go. In the meantime, I'm going to grab some water. Oh, Alex, you brought your own. There you go. Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm closing. I'm shutting it down. Here we are. All right. Good deal. All right. Are we ready to roll? All's well? No. That's at the end. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I probably should have run. Listen. Details are not my forte. Okay. Huh? Yeah. Here we are. Very cool. All right. So, we're getting started. I'm going to read Alex's intro. I found it somewhere.
Oh no! Now I get to be concerned about which.
No,
found
none
online.
at all. All right, here we go. All right, here's the intro. Prepare to elevate and change your mental state, because it's time to conquer life with Alexandra the Great. She's here to help you connect your body to your mind and yourself to your purpose so you could be aligned, so you could rise above the mess and the stress. With a yes on your breath, climbing steps to success, you're becoming the best version of yourself that you know you could be. Unearthing the health that helps you feel free, but this is not woo-woo. This is based in science. This is embodiment practices for brain rewiring and quieting the monkey mind through self-regulation with focus on behavior change and self-restoration and actions that you take to calm your nervous system, relaxing in a state so you could live your mission and get a handle on emotions and also your feelings. It's building your resilience to unleash your inner brilliance through a coach and a community. You'll connect and create a better way of living so you could be great. It's now we live life loud and no time for stalling. Let's level up and learn with Dr. Alex Pauley.
Well done.
I had it as Miss Alex Pauley, but
I
dang.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah. Now I'm going to need that because I need that intro. That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed, getting to know you. Now we're making a podcast. This is crazy, y'all.
Woo.
Here we are, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Alex, tell the people.
Yes.
Let's start with the origin story. Where did your parents meet? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Well, it all started with a tiny radioactive spider and
Nice.
Oh wait, wrong origin story. So I would have to say that I think probably the best place to start is when everything fell apart. I think a lot of us find that that's where things need to change.
Sure.
Is from a place when you lose literally everything. And for me, that happened when I was just 20 years old. So the shortened version is that I was first diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 2 years old. So from about 18 months to when I was 5, I had a number of issues that went on with my body and was in and out of the hospital, lots of really intense treatments. And then for about 15 years, I was in remission and picture perfect health. But when I was around 19, started to see some symptoms again. Lots of stress was going on in my life. I was a bit estranged from my family at the time, going through a lot of, in some ways, really normal late teens, early 20s turmoil, trying to figure out who I was, where I wanted to go, who I wanted to be, how I wanted to show up in the world. And the stress of all of that time started to physically manifest in my body. And when I was 20, I was re-diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I started taking a medication, an anti-rheumatic, that 3 weeks later completely changed my life overnight and nearly took my life. That severe allergic reaction, the official diagnosis or the official title is toxic epidermal necrolysis. Without getting too sciencey, toxic, we know this word. Epidermal has to do with the epidermis. That's the top 3 to 4 layers of skin that sits on your dermis, the bottom like 5 to 6 layers of skin. Necrolysis, which necro, right, has to do with death. And so essentially what this did is that it causes ulcers in your mucous membranes and it kills off the cells that hold your epidermis to your dermis. Now, if this affects more than 30% of your body, you have about a 40% mortality rate. And I lost 85% of my epidermis. You wouldn't know that looking at me, even
You look great, by the
especially
way. Yeah, no,
from
no,
further
not at all.
away, but I really am still covered head to toe in really tiny and some large scars. But I think we all have also experienced life enough by this point that we know that the hardest scars to recover from, you can't see on the surface. And so after this happened, I was in the hospital for a month. It also led to a number of other health crises because anytime your entire body is in survival mode and having to move heaven and earth to just keep you alive, you start to see breakdown in other areas. Our body is not a single system, but a system of systems. And so you start borrowing from one system to help to fix another, and then that system borrows from another and another and another. And so for the next about 10 years, my entire 20s, which don't worry, I still did plenty of dumb 20s stuff, but I was also dealing with 1 to 2 eye surgeries a day. I'm still technically legally blind, but throughout that time period, I was dealing with a lot of scar tissue, not just on my skin, but on my eyes. I was also trying to recover in terms of all of these systems in my life. And because of that, I really should have done what I think we consistently tell people in their 20s to do, which is to rest and savor life and learn things. And I listened to, like every other person in their 20s, none of that, and continued to run at full speed ahead. I said, okay, life wants to stop me and slow me down. Great, I'm going to double my pace. Not only am I going to work a full-time job, putting myself through my undergraduate degree, but I'm going to get multiple promotions and in fact, try and get a managerial position. Not only am I going to then decide to go to graduate school, but I'm just going to dive straight into a complete joint MA PhD program while still working and doing all of these other things in my life. So
You're trying to make everybody feel bad right now, right?
I'm genuinely trying to get across a very close to my heart point that we don't need to do that. To say that I was an overachiever, which is where I'm going with this, is to put it mildly. I've never known how to slow down. I've never known how to not be a doer. And so I kept doing. And that started to cause even more problems. I think a lot of us, when we get into our 30s, 40s, for some of us, it waits until our 50s, but we will start to notice the effects of not just stress, right? Stress in and of itself can inherently be a good thing until we have a little too much of it. But any type of chronic stress on our system is going to cause a lot of problems. And so this chronic stress over time kept building and building and building for me because I refused to slow down.
Sure.
And that meant that I was living in constant fight or flight mode. So my cortisol levels were off the charts consistently.
Yeah.
And they really had been for most of my life, just the way that I'd grown up and a couple other factors. But I lived in this fight or flight. But the thing about the nervous system is you can only produce so much cortisol, and then your body starts to steal from the other hormonal systems in your body to create more cortisol. But when it's depleted all of those different ways of making cortisol, you just plummet. And so I went into this period of time that we are now talking a little bit more about called functional freeze, where all of your effort in a day will go to, say, your job, whatever that is, to this one thing in your life, and you keep putting everything you have. But the second that that is off, you collapse. So if you're someone who is on it at your job all day long, but when you get home, the only energy that you have is to scroll through your phone, binge watch a TV show, and eat whatever's convenient in the fridge, you might be in functional freeze.
Yeah.
And the real turning point for me was a yoga class that I went to where we're lying in Shavasana at the end of yoga class. It's very beautiful. That particular teacher loved to do little guided meditations or thoughts to think about during that time period. And that day, she said to us, as you breathe in the words, I am sublime. And as you breathe out the words, I am worthy. And in that moment, even in my own head, my thoughts could not form the word worthy. You know, you're saying I'm doing all of this stuff. But somewhere deep inside, because of what I'd been through, I could not see myself as worthy.
Yeah.
And I knew something had to change.
Right. So that's this is the climax of the movie, if this is a movie, right? So
Still a little bit more to go.
yeah. Okay. So or a turning point, let's call
Turning
it.
point,
So what actually changed? Was it Tony Robbins perhaps? No.
No. So I started to rethink my relationship with myself. And, I started to look at practices that made me feel more connected to myself, that made me feel better in the moment. I started to build trust in my own body. Yoga was a big part of that because it can be very meditative, but it's also this practice that as you come back to it again and again, it's very clear to see when you are making progress. And a lot of that progress is very mental. We think about yoga in the West as being something where you're trying to put your foot behind your head and stand on your hands at the same time. But traditionally, and the ancient practice of yoga is really mostly breath work, meditation, coming into your body to experience your full self.
Right.
So I started doing these embodiment practices. And I also started to notice another thing that I was doing to myself, which was in the healthcare industry, we use a lot of language that is the language of battle, the language of war.
Battle. Okay.
Battle.
Okay. I thought you said bowel. I was like, ugh. Do we? All right.
That's only certain parts of the healthcare
Sure.
system. But no, we use this language of war. We talk about fighting things. We're survivors. We're warriors. We're against stuff. And rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune condition. So technically, yes, my immune system was attacking healthy soft tissues in my body. And so I would consistently think, my body's attacking itself. My body's at war with itself. I'm at war with my body. And I made a very conscious decision about 5 years ago to change that language. And instead of saying, I'm at war with myself, I started to say, I'm working to make peace with myself. I think I got this next idea from Esther Perel, where she talks about how if you are in conflict or an argument with someone that you care about, instead of thinking of it as me against you, thinking of it as us against the problem. And so I started to say, I'm on the same team as my body.
Sure.
And while there were a lot of other shifts that were happening there, shifts in terms of, yes, I was making nutrition changes, lifestyle changes, mindset changes, right? Relationship shifts in my life, changing where I lived and who I spent my time with. So those changes were happening too. And all of that came together to create big shifts. But I think that change of being on the same team as my body was a really big piece of it. And in 2021, the same year that I graduated with my PhD, I went into remission with my arthritis.
Nice.
And I started to feel better. Everything started to look better. But it wasn't until I made one more mindset shift, one more lifestyle shift, that I would say everything truly and completely shifted. So this wasn't a one turning point, but a multi-turning point that finally culminated in this moment of allowing, through this connection to myself, through this connection to my body, to also connect to my purpose. I think that when we come here, we all have something that we are intended to learn, to experience, or to do in this life. And for me, even when I was very young, I felt like I knew what that was, but society kept saying, no, you need to do this and this and this, right? I'm a millennial, which means that
millennials, let's go.
Yes, we got told that here is your formula to get to happily ever after, right? I think happily ever after, probably one of the worst phrases to happen to the millennial generation and to Gen X. But yeah, so I tried to do all of the, you know, quote, right things. And I was still so unhappy. I was teaching full time. I got to spend some time doing market research. All of my research was attitude change, behavior change. And I kept looking at this and being like, how is it that I've filled out this formula? I've done all my checklist. I know all the things. And I don't like my life. I'm still kind of tired every day. I'm still not enjoying this. And
Yeah.
I had this experience with a dear friend of mine who does these like guided spiritual journeys. And I've always been first and foremost a scientist. So like woo-woo and I, we have a complicated relationship.
Sure.
But she reached out to me to join this one group where she needed an extra person. And it came at a time when so much else was happening, transition in my life. And I said yes. And that one journey, that one night, I woke up the next day and I was like, no, I have to live my purpose. I have to live in alignment with who I am, with what I'm here to do, and with the things that truly serve me.
Sure.
And from that point forward, life became filled for me with a lot of ease, with a lot of fulfillment. It's as if every day feels like this beautiful gift. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's how I felt. And so the work that I do now is helping others to use these embodiment practices, to use these mindset shifts, to connect more deeply to themselves, to connect more deeply to their purpose. And just as importantly, to connect to their community, because we're not islands, right? We are connected to each other and we have to be in this together, especially in this particular time period.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I started to do the work that I do.
No, that's great. And I mean, it's very empowering to hear your story and hear you come out on the other end of it, you know, just, you know, better and more whole and all of those things. I am curious because you talk about, you know, a lot of this but it's a little philosophical as we talk about it, right? Which I'm all about philosophical. I'm also all about practical because I'm trying to fix my life yesterday. I don't know about y'all, but that's me. So what are like concrete things that people can do, you know, in the moment? Let's say you talked about fight or flight earlier, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're feeling fight or flight because, you know, somebody ate your Twinkie, right? That happens. I don't know what happens at y'all's workplace, but that's
rude.
Yeah, right. So you're feeling these feelings, you're spiraling. What do you do?
So I will say, I think a lot of the language that we have right now, because of social media in particular, and the way that we have begun to communicate with each other in very short sentences, short phrases, short clips, short means of discussing things, we get into a habit of trying to make everything convenient and to make everything one size fits all. So I do have a much, much longer answer for that that is going to be really tailored to the person that's in front of me, right? Because of especially the things that I went through as a really young kid, I'm not neurotypical, right? Everyone else in my family, very, very neurotypical. Me, not so much. My body went through a little bit more. And so my brain wired a little differently. And so because of that, I'm very attuned to the fact that depending on who you are, what the moment is happening, that answer is going to be a little different.
Sure.
However, there are collections of practices that we can think about when we're having this moment. Two of my main types of practices that I teach people are breath work and somatic movement.
And what is
And-
somatic
yeah.
movement actually?
And essentially, all that's somatic just means in your body, right?
Mhm.
And so we're using this term right now, somatic movement or somatic release. We're using that as a label for different kinds of movements that you can do in your body that's going to release energy in some way.
Mhm.
So different somatic practices can sometimes be associated with different emotions needing to be released. So for example, what you described as anger. So two really simple practices that I would immediately say to go into is number one, do you have, just curling your hands into very light fists, thumbs on the outside, don't want to hurt yourself, and just very lightly kind of tapping. And because your quadricep muscles, right? Sorry, I forget we are audio, so I am touching the tops of my thighs. So just you can lightly tap, but your thighs can actually take quite a bit of pressure. So you can actually get in there and just like back and forth, one thigh then the other.
Yeah.
And so that's doing two things. Number one, your quadriceps, because of where they are in your body, they're one of the first things to tense up when you're angry or feeling that fight or flight need. Because your body is literally going to start sinking in your hips, being prepared to run or to fight somebody.
Right.
So the act of kind of tapping or punching your thighs, your quadriceps, that's the tops and the outer sides of your thighs, is going to start to release some of that, to get some of that cortisol that's starting, that adrenaline that's pumping into those muscles to be like, okay, we don't actually need to be here. It's fine.
Sure.
There's, someone who ate my Twinkie, not a bear. So probably okay. And then the second piece of that is when you're tapping yourself, alternating, you're also doing something called bilateral stimulation. Bi meaning two, lateral meaning side to side. So the two sides of your body, if you're tapping or in other ways stimulating the two sides of your body, you're essentially resetting your brain. You're telling your brain, oh, I need to pay attention to this half of my body, right? If I'm tapping the right half of my body, the left half of my brain goes, ooh, we're doing something. And if I'm tapping the left side of my body, my right side of my brain goes, ooh, we're doing something. And this means your brain kind of gets confused and it does a little bit of a reset. And it's like, oh, wait, I have to stay present in this moment. I can't be predicting what I'm going to do next. I have to notice.
Sure.
And so in that noticing, it gives you that moment to pause.
That's good. And do you recommend like making eye contact with the person you're angry at and doing this?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. All right.
I think one of my favorite things that my therapist, I've like I said, I've done all of the things. I believe in medication. I believe in meditation. I believe in therapy. I believe in group support, like all of these things. But one of my favorite practices that I got from my therapist is she's like, when you're feeling upset and the anger part of your grief at this specific person at the time is coming out, go for a walk. And while you're walking, imagine if this were a movie and you were a murderer, all of the things you do.
Oh, nice.
Because as you're walking, you're releasing cortisol. You're getting that emotion of anger out of your system. So I would not look at that person, mostly because that person would probably look back at you and it'd be very uncomfortable. They'd be like, what is this crazy person doing, tapping their thighs and staring at me? But yeah, movement is going to be helpful. And the second piece of that is breath work, because once you've released, then it can be really helpful to slow everything down. So you've turned on your sympathetic, right? That fight or flight system. And now you're slowing down your heart rate, slowing down your breath to then move or switch back on into your parasympathetic so that you can kind of think through stuff and decide what to do. That actually reminds me. Another fun little thing that I think now we actually have started teaching kids, which is really cool, is that so if everyone both at home and here wants to take their hand and open it up, flat palm, close your fingers together, kind of like a blade. Now take your thumb into your palm and then cover your thumb with your fingers. Now, Your fingers we'll think of as the prefrontal cortex. That's your thinking part of your brain. That thumb that's tucked inside we'll think about as the limbic system, the emotional center of your brain. And then we'll think about this like little base of your palm, the start of your wrist, as your brain stem. That's like your lizard brain, your monkey mind, right? This is pure instinct. When you get triggered by stress, by something coming at you, someone says boo in a scary movie, right? Any of these things, open up your palm completely. Your thinking part of your brain and your emotional part of your brain go completely offline. A lot of times when we say that someone is being overly emotional, we're not actually talking about their emotions. We are making an assumption that they are in the brainstem. They are in that instinctual fight or flight part of themselves, which means, yeah, they could do anything. They could fight, they could flee, they could light things on fire. We don't know. Because they're literally not having emotions, which can be processed, and they're not having their thoughts, which can be turned into something. The only way of accessing the brainstem is through your body.
Okay.
The only way at all. If someone is in that state, if you've known someone in that state, if you've been in that state, you kind of know. People tell you to calm down. You can't even process those words properly. So the only way to bring back on the thumb, the emotional center, and the fingers, the brain, like the thinking, what we think of as we are humans, we think through things, we're logical. That part of your brain, the only way to bring that back online is to do things through your body. And so that's why things like tapping, like breathing deeply, our diaphragm sits underneath of our lungs, but it also works directly with something called our vagus nerve, which is actually a lot of nerves that it goes directly to our brainstem, tells us, hey, we're actually calm. We're actually safe. We don't need to be in fight or flight. We can bring our emotions back online. We can bring our thoughts back online. And so, yeah, so the body, all of the practices that in that question is all going to be body practices, slowing down your breath, releasing some of that cortisol so that it doesn't get stuck anywhere in your body. So,
yeah, for sure. Oh, sure. I just, yeah.
I just wanted to say, I'm trying not to cry. I've been in chronic pain for a year and a half now, and it's arthritis of the spine. Arthritis of the spine. I have a couple tears and bulging discs and stuff that just won't heal. I think the hardest part is people can't see that until you do break down. And so being here is so random today, and you being here, so I appreciate it, and I'll probably want to talk to you. But yeah, it's a hard thing to get through, and the timing is crazy. But yes, thank you.
Yeah.
See? Woo. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm kind of in a place in my life where I don't believe in coincidences. So I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for sharing that. It is hard. It is hard when we can't see that. And a lot of, I think, what we experience right now, we live in this society, we live in this culture, especially in the United States. We don't talk about our emotions. We don't talk about when things are hard. We're always pushing. That's why I told that part of my story, because I don't think that I'm unique in that. And in my own work with the clients that I've worked with, I've started to see that as a pattern. When I first started this work, I specifically wanted to work with people with chronic illnesses. What I found is that a lot of people with chronic illness don't identify as having a chronic illness, right? If you're taking medication for high blood pressure, you have a chronic illness, right? We don't think about it that way. Diabetes, chronic illness, right? Some type of mental health issues are often going to be chronic illness. But I started to see this overlap between people who had chronic health conditions or chronic mental conditions and overachievers. Also, I'm personally an only child, but I think that we only children, especially as women, also tend to have eldest daughter syndrome. So that kind of like eldest daughter syndrome comes out anytime where we, especially as young kids or in our earlier adult years, have been asked to take on so much emotional labor, so much of the doing labor that corporate America asks of us these days. In my case, both corporate America and then academia, which is honestly a little worse. But yeah, we're asking so much of our bodies that is technically possible, but then we're not expressing or releasing the things that need to be expressed and released. And we're not sharing those things with other people. And we are inherently, biologically, sociologically, community-based creatures. And so when we do not have those personal individual outlets, when we don't have those physical outlets, and we don't have those community spaces as an outlet, it starts to manifest physically.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, COVID taught us that, right? We were just locked up in our houses and I'm going to admit something, and I might delete this out of the podcast. I have a machete. I have a machete at my house, and I went outside and I was chopping up my bushes like a maniac. And
That's awesome.
I mean, I didn't know what to do with myself. No, everything was fine.
I meant on accident.
Yeah, indeed. No, and I mean, yeah, I probably made it in a couple TikToks. Who knows? But anyways,
no, I think that's great, because the second I had said I had 2 somatic things to tell you about. The other one is grabbing a towel or a pillow, pulling it up over your head, inhaling, and as you exhale, throwing it on the floor. It's another great release.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a Dutch oven, sort of.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
No, absolutely not. Not at all.
Okay. All right.
But similar to your machete.
Yeah.
Letting that physically out of your body.
No, that's great. And yeah, I want to talk a little more about breath work, because it's super helpful and important. I heard somewhere that rich people actually breathe less than we do. Is that true? That's why they're successful. I don't know.
I doubt it. So I will say the more stressed you are, the faster you will tend to breathe.
Does that help? Like breathing faster?
No,
Does that okay?
No. Breathing. Okay. We're gonna do more fun. How do I explain things so people back home know what I'm physically doing time? So if you think about your rib cage, your lungs sit inside your rib cage, and underneath, keep hitting this thing, underneath of your rib cage is this big dome or umbrella shaped muscle called your diaphragm. Anyone here ever done like performance work, right? Stage work? Speak with your diaphragm, getting to the back of the theater. Right, that's the muscle that you're using. And the way that breathing works, the science of breathing is kind of like a jellyfish. When you inhale, that dome-shaped muscle, like the top of the jellyfish, will sink down. So when you're breathing in, the muscle is actually sucking air into your lungs. It's pulling down so that air starts to come into your lungs. And when you exhale, the muscle is actually releasing, and it's releasing up, kind of like a jellyfish propelling itself. Right?
Okay.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is this massive muscle that sits just underneath of your lungs is also sitting on top of your organs. And straight through that, you have what I just talked about earlier, which is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a lot of nerves, but we collectively call it that. And it has 2 main components. It comes from that brain stem part, the low part of your brain by your neck. And one part of it reaches out and touches your face. So technically, when you make faces, that is giving information to your brainstem. And a lot of, if you've ever met someone who's like what they're thinking always shows up on their face, I'm guilty, totally. You will always know how I feel about you. It's because the brainstem is making your face do things, right? It's also why disgust and fear are 2 of the hardest things to hide on our faces, because they're so closely linked. The other part of the vagus nerve goes straight down in front of your spine and comes through a pocket in your diaphragm. So every time that you breathe, because it has to go through the diaphragm to get to your organs, because that's the job that it does. It makes sure that all of your organs keep functioning. Because of that, anytime your diaphragm moves, it's sending signals to your brainstem. So this works two ways, both in terms of when you are stressed.
Oh man.
Yeah. Both in terms of when you are
Wow.
stressed, you will automatically start to breathe faster and you'll start to breathe higher up in your chest, right? So think about this. I'm a pedestrian, right? Nobody wants me driving, I promise. Not with my eyesight. So I'm walking outside. I'm going to cross the street. I have the light. I go to step off the curb. Someone squeals around the corner and rushes right past me. Instinct. I'm going to jump back. I'll probably gasp in through my mouth, maybe even clutch my pearls that I'm not wearing today. But that is a very instinctual response. That quick gasp, high in my chest, through my mouth, right? But when I'm nice and calm and relaxed, you'll start to notice you breathe lower in your body. Your breaths are longer. Oftentimes we'll talk about deep breathing. People think big breaths. That's not what we're talking. We literally mean deeper into the body. That means your diaphragm is turning on. So that is a natural response that we have. And the thing is, we can manipulate our brainstem in the opposite direction. So if we want our bodies to like have some cortisol, you'll see like some athletes, right? They pump themselves up, right? My first career before all of this crazy health stuff happened, I was an actress and I studied Shakespeare and how to be a Shakespearean performer. One of the things that Shakespeare did that was so brilliant as he wrote these kinds of things into the sides, the script. So for example, if he wanted someone on stage to start getting agitated and angry, you might notice now, if you ever have the desire to go read or watch something Shakespearean, that person will suddenly get a lot of words that start with H's. Right? And that signals to your brain, I need to be on alert. I need to be agitated. I need to have more cortisol pumping to my muscles. Right?
Interesting.
And the opposite is true. You can use longer, deeper breaths. You can even use breath holds to start to calm your system, because your literal system will say, if I'm able to have a long, luxurious breath, I must be safe.
So, okay. Let's put it in practical terms. So when you say a breath hold, right?
Yeah.
You how many seconds do you breathe in? How
So
long
that's
do you
where-
hold it? Like, you know?
So that's where it starts to get tricky. You know, we have so many different types of breath practices, and all it really comes down to is the same 3 breath practices. And they're all just versions of the same thing. And the reason we give them so many different techniques is every brain, every body is a little different.
Mine's a lot different, but
yeah. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the version that's going to keep your brain occupied enough to actually do the thing. So we have 3 different versions of breath practices. The first is that fast breathing. If you do need a little pep in your step, you can kind of that faster, quicker breathing. I'm doing that through my nose, but especially if you do it out through your mouth, like that's going to really pump you up. If you already have trouble with high cortisol and stress, do not recommend for pregnant women, right? Do not recommend for anyone with cardiovascular issues. But that is one breath practice. And it's to activate your autonomic nervous system, that sympathetic and parasympathetic that I was just talking about. The second breath practice is going to be balancing. A lot of people will say a 3-3 or a 4-4 breath, but literally all you're doing is you're getting yourself to even out your inhales and exhales. That's it. Whatever version of that works with your brain in that moment, perfect. Do that. And then the third one, which is the calming, is going to be that slower exhale. And what you're doing with that slower exhale is you are releasing more carbon dioxide than you are inhaling oxygen.
Is that good for the environment? I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Everyone should have plants.
Nice.
Buy plants for your home. Carry one with you.
Yeah.
This is useful because oftentimes when we're having panic attacks or anxiety starts to come into our body, there is a little neurotransmitter in our brain that is saying, so here's the thing, our body reacts on we do not have enough oxygen, but the signal that creates that is actually triggered by too much carbon dioxide. And so sometimes those two things can get crossed. So our body will believe that we don't have enough oxygen because it's perceiving that we have a higher amount of carbon dioxide than we actually have. So a lot of times when people start to hyperventilate or have a panic attack, their body is literally telling them you need more air because you have too much carbon dioxide. But what happens when you're breathing super fast is you might accidentally over-oxygenate yourself, which has this, kind of glitchy, unfortunate thing where it also tells your brain that you have too much carbon dioxide and need more oxygen. It just becomes this pattern that's really hard to break until you literally pass out. And when you pass out, it resets that neurotransmitter and your body goes, oh, okay, I'm going to breathe normal again.
Okay.
But you can hold your breath there.
Right.
And when you hold your breath and you let that carbon dioxide build up, that can also trigger that same glitch in the neurotransmitter.
So in practical terms, let's say freaking out, I need to, I guess, exhale more carbon dioxide than I do. Do I do like a 4-8 or do I, what am I doing exactly?
Again, that's going to depend on the person. And that's why I teach so many different versions of that.
Okay.
Because, for example, when I was in my breath coach training, I did tons of certifications. I mean, I'm an academic. What do you expect? But when I was doing that particular training, they started with the 4-8 breath, in for 4, out for 8. Always counts, not seconds. That means you can speed it up or slow it down, how works for you. But they always started with that. And yet when I do a 4-8 breath in my body, it makes me more stressed. That long exhale, for whatever reason, is really hard for me. So instead of doing that, I always switch over to a triangle breath. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4.
Right.
For whatever reason, my brain chemistry is much better with that slight hold than with the long exhale.
Okay.
And the one that, unfortunately, a lot of providers will go straight to, that a lot of people have a lot of stress around, is the box breathing. The in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. That hold on the exhale can actually be more activating on your system. And so that's why there are so many, right? The 4-7-8 is another one. The physiologic sigh, which is actually the first one I teach. And I'm happy to teach that probably maybe at the end of the session today. I think that's a great one to go home with. But all of these are really just doing the exact same thing. And that's why it's so helpful not to just know one tool, not to just have this one thing you always come back to, because it may not always work and it may not be the most effective version of that tool for your body.
Got it. Yeah, for sure. And I actually use the 4-7-8 when I'm trying to go back to sleep. It seems to work pretty well. And so, I do want to touch on sleep, and we're running short on time. So I do. Sorry, I missed what you said.
I made a joke. It's fine.
Okay, no worries. So Getting a good night's sleep is so important, of course, right? It's one of the ways that we combat stress because being sleep deprived is stressful. So, what are practices that people can do in order to, obviously get a good night's sleep, stay asleep, all of those things? I mentioned the 4-7-8 works for me. What else can we do? Don't look at your phone. Understood.
Blue light, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love this. I love this. So obviously there's another, again, long list of practices that you can go to and look at.
Sure.
But I'm going to give you a few very specific ones that I have been especially excited about lately.
Is it NyQuil? Because I use NyQuil sometimes.
No,
Okay.
nor is it Nicki Minaj.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for those who understood that joke. So the two, okay, so I'm going to give you three big things. The very first thing is to figure out how you personally unwind. And I am so sorry, but scrolling social media is not it.
Facts.
Stage whisper, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry. Oftentimes when we are scrolling social media or we're watching YouTube videos or we're binge watching something, when we think about what our bodies, our brains, our selves are trying to get out of that is a couple things. We're trying to feel calmer, yes. We're also trying to feel connected.
Sure.
So a practice that I will highly recommend is to find a good night buddy. For some of us, maybe you have, no,
right.
I don't mean it in that context. Let me continue.
All right, carry on.
Maybe you have that version of a good night buddy. Good for you. Maybe that person exists in your house. But for a lot of us, we still live alone, or we, live with a roommate that we're not particularly close to, or any versions of this. But finding someone that you do get to send a good night text to, or have a good night phone call with, someone that you can reach out to and have a meaningful connection to in the evening, that's going to produce a certain amount of feel-good hormones in the brain. That's going to tell your brain you're safe, you're connected, you're in a good place. So that's one of the first things that I'll say when you're finding your wind down is find your people you can connect to.
Okay, Mark Deal. Good night, buddy. Yay. No. All right. Okay.
So finding that connection, we are, a little history. When I was in academia, I studied political science, and I studied media effect and attitude change. And I studied a lot about how we get so tied up in parasocial relationships that our physical life relationships start to suffer, not just to other people, but also to ourselves. And so using social media as a means of bolstering those relationships is great, but using them to supplant or instead of those real life relationships can put us physically, right, brain chemistry wise, into some little murky waters. And so having that connection before bed is so important. Yes, there are a lot of other things, having a cool bedroom, using a weighted blanket, drinking milk before bed, or sleepy time tea, avoiding blue light. All of these things are great. And when it comes to physically falling asleep, another thing that I think is really great is learning how to mimic how your brain falls asleep. So a practice that I love, whether it's you have trouble falling asleep or you wake up in the middle of the night, is and this is apparently something that they used in the military. That I, speaking of social media, does have good things I found on social media. Is that you can start to mimic how your brain gets super erratic when you're falling asleep, and that'll make it easier to fall asleep. So for example, two versions of this. The first version is to literally just start letting your brain wander and naming all the things that it does, right? Let's say we start with squirrel, blue, asparagus, rhomboids, hair, shoes, chicken.
I have all of those in my room, by the way, so that would be perfect.
Including a chicken?
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Okay.
Don't ask.
So you literally create, because your brain isn't trying to make sense of things when it's trying to fall asleep. It's trying to get into that wavelength. For some of us, though, we'll start to get in our heads, pun intended, about that. So another thing is you could say, okay, I'm going to choose a word. Again, we'll start with squirrel. And I'm going to choose words that start with S until I run out. And the second that your brain pauses, you move to the next thing. Like, you don't try to search for it. You don't try to attach to anything. So it would be like socks. And I've lost
Smelly
S's,
socks.
right? Smelly socks, right?
Yeah.
And then immediately a Q, quiet.
Yeah.
Right. So you just keep kind of going down that pattern. So that's another really, really great thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're about out of time.
And breath.
It's
relaxing breath patterns.
Okay.
4, 7, 8. Right. That's which, for people who don't know what 4, 7, 8 is, you in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Seconds, not minutes, guys. Thank you. Just making sure.
Correct.
You know,
none of us
just
are
don't,
free divers.
Yeah. Don't die trying to fall asleep. All right. So I'm shutting it down. I'm gonna do a little thing that I do with an instrumental in the background, and then we're gonna shut it down, and then we're gonna do it. So
before you do that, I do just want to say I do have. I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching around this.
Oh, I'm gonna ask that after this.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
sorry.
I
I'm sorry.
will wait.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I'll wait.
Good. Yeah. That's what I end on. So don't end on myself. That would be terrible.
Perfect.
All right.
No, I know.
Talk about a whole bunch of techniques so I can just be that person that goes erratic in my mind, come through and I find a whole bunch of things, and I answer find a whole bunch of messages that I gotta send myself all the time, and that's what I'm saying. Talk about Alex dropping a bunch of knowledge about the negative words to the freestyle. Yo, you just observe your own thoughts. Don't get in it. I come straight through. Can't be as soon as you gotta understand this life is your own, and that's what I'm saying. Your body is your home, where you gotta be all the time. Yo, you're working for yourself. That's what I find. Coming up the top, talking about this lady. She is a doctor, come straight through. And yo, what just doctor rhymes all the time. It's about breathing, up in your mind, holding the thought. You all come through. Words that I drop. Yo, with this true. I'm spitting out the top. And that's how I go. Dr. Alex Pauley, up in the flow. Thank you. All right. Here's the deal. We want to find you online to have parasympathetic or parasocial relationships with you. I look at your stories and say, hey, yeah, we're gonna keep doing this. So share all the places people can find you online. Do you have a MySpace? No.
I do not have a MySpace, a MyFace.
Yeah, all of those. So how can people connect with you online? And I will tag all of this, of course, in the show notes.
Perfect. The best 2 places are going to be, first off, alexpauley.com, ALEX. My last name is Paul, like the man's name, PAULEY. So alexpauley.com. So a lot of information there, both about the one-on-one work that I do, the group coaching program and membership that I have starting in April, and then also corporate wellness talks that I give.
Yeah.
The second place.
And you speaking and coaching. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Gary.
And then the second place that you can find me, I think I've mentioned multiple times now, I'm a millennial. So I think you already know where I'm going with this. Instagram. But that's going to be Alex C. Pauley. So C as in Charlie.
Word.
Yeah. So those are the 2 best places to find me.
Okay. Very cool. Well, Alex, thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you all for coming through and hanging out and sharing and all those things.
Thank you all.
All right.
And thanks to, I'm going to call you Dr. Kimyung in the very Dre style.
Yeah.
For the
Rock and
lovely intro and outro.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. All right. Peace.
Wait, before y'all get it, let me get a picture of y'all there with the audience. And there you go.
Hey, look like you're happy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raise your arms like it's the best.
Like what? Very cool. All right, thank y'all.
Until we make it.
Yep.
No, that's me. It on or off?
It's off. Oh, it's on now. There we go. So we have done our 2 shows. If you want to leave, you are welcome to leave. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay because we're going to have some fun, some audience participation.
We're going to talk to Manny Faces some more.
We're going to talk to Manny Faces some more.
Kimyung.
In fact, we were workshopping stuff.
Check.
What can we do while everything is things are shifting around since we went to 2 shows. And Kim, maybe he's going to be. Oh, you got all right. Excellent. So this is how this microphone works. You got to talk into this black round thing, and it is throwable. The moment I throw it,
all right.
Notice there we go. Notice it doesn't pick up any noises or anything like that. So that's how we're going to use this thing. We've had a lot of great shows, a lot of great hosts, and a lot of great guests. So I will say on podjamatl.com, and I realize I'm standing up and not in front of the streamer people, folks watching on the stream. If you head over to podjamatl.com, everybody that you've seen here, everybody that's been on this couch, on this stage, there's their name as well as links to their shows, their websites, and what they do. So if you were unable to capture all the different websites and the things to reach people, head on over to podjamatl.com. Essentially the same website that you saw you bought your ticket from. There's links to information there, as well as the stream and the replay for the stream. Excellent. So you got your wireless mic hooked up, Charles? Charles has a great idea.
Yeah, will you stop talking for a minute?
Yeah. Check. You picking me up? Picking me up, putting me down, all around. I'm speaking. There it is. Yeah, there goes something. That's something. Something. All right. Check. I'll keep talking until you need me to stop. We're doing it. Shout outs.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. All right. Kim, if you'll take the associate. Manny, if you will sit on the left.
So you want me on the right?
You're in the middle.
I'm in the middle. Oh, okay, cool. Got it. Malcolm in the middle. Let's go. Man, yeah, I guess you're. Yeah.
Manny,
Y'all got.
Pick your side, man. It doesn't matter.
Y'all got official mics. I got an unofficial. Yeah. No, you were killing it earlier, by the way. That was great. Yeah. For sure. Let's go. Here we are. Yeah. I don't know. I think self-promoting ourselves right here. Yeah. You know what? I like the hot seat. It's I like it warm to start though, but there you go.
All right.
What's up? You're in there.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
Get that later.
Okay. Fair enough.
Oh, that's a low seat. That is. There. All right. So we had a last minute change. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have our third show on. So I am Charles Mcfall. I've got a podcasting and I host Finding the Stories. And as I was listening to both these gentlemen, I was like, let's talk to them about the theme of what they do, which is we use our voices to change lives. And we got to keep a theme though. Also, is at least one person has wanted to catch box comment throughout this whole thing, so we need to keep that going. 2, I got my tag, and I got podcasting. We got Manny Faces. So is it going to be Kim Yeezy? Kim Yeezy. Is that how we do that?
Keep it easy with Kim Yeezy. Let's go.
Oh,
all right.
All right. And Mark's got the catch box.
I do.
So it's first off, and this is for anybody to ask anything. You want to talk about how they do what they do? We got this portable. We're good. So, Manny, what got you started using your voice to talk about how hip hop can save America?
Yeah, I stumbled into. I'm a loudmouth from New York. I talk loud and fast, so that's normal. But I stumbled into journalism for a while, and I was working in an alternative news weekly. Newspapers are these things that used to
yes, sir.
deliver
They're like blogs in your hand.
Yeah. Blogs are like long so I stumbled into that, and I was actually there like doing graphic design, production manager stuff. But I happen to, be decent with words and stuff. And so I started writing for the paper and doing some things with them. I was a hip hop guy in that I was doing music and I was DJing and I was making remixes, and I did have a MySpace page, and I was very and so the combination of things, I started documenting New York area hip hop music and culture.
Yep.
And I had a blog, I had basically an online magazine, and I would just go around covering not the superstars, but like the local, the
the
cool
up-and-comers.
stuff, the indie scene, the underground scene, and some of these things have been long-lasting sessions. The last like 20 years, they've been running every Sunday night, end of the week at the Pyramid Club in the Lower East Side. Just a cutting ground for artists, to cut their teeth. And so I started writing about that. And then I did a companion piece, which was on Blog Talk Radio, some of the OG podcasters.
I know people behind that.
Yeah. And I used to have a show called the New York Hip Hop Report. And every Sunday night, 10 p.m. And it was great because we had a catch box where we had the phone number. They would call in. So I used to call it like Sports Talk Radio for New York Hip Hop.
Okay,
And people would call in, and it was live, and we just talk about the things that were going on. So that gave me my first kind of taste of doing something verbally and through a podcast-esque format. And I'm a forward technology guy, so I was working with newspaper. Like, y'all gotta do podcasts. Y'all have to do. But they were like, no. And then like 10 years later, they're like, why don't you tell us to do podcasts? And I'm like, I've been telling you, because by then it was something that was current.
Right.
So that evolved, long story short, into a couple of shows. And I just gravitated toward this subject because when I was covering all those artists, I found like JR, like people like that who were teaching artists. It taught me what a teaching artist was. Like, you hear the words, but what does that mean? Who you teaching them to rap? No, I'm in schools, doing these education intersections through the music culture. I thought that was fascinating. You talk about saving lives. People like JR, my man Mcfall, they go into juvenile detention centers. They go into, and do the same thing. I just went to one. I was in Hanford, California, at a juvenile so a high school inside of a jail with a bunch of like 16-year-olds. Same thing, teaching them podcasting. The greatest thing, I'll leave it at this. The greatest thing about podcasting with this intention is that I was teaching them podcasting. Yeah, here's how to do podcasts. Here's all the different kind of podcasts. So we showed them like Ear Hustle. Your opinions matter. Don't think that because you're in this place that it doesn't matter. And so I'm there to teach them podcasting, but I'm really teaching them like, no, your position in life doesn't dictate who you are. Your voice matters. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear from you when you're not in this place any longer. So I interviewed a b-boy, breaking. And he said the same thing. He said, I'm in the Arctic. I'm in some workshop in some tiny village somewhere in northern Canada. And I'm teaching these kids breaking moves. What I'm really teaching them is that you can actually do something that you didn't think you could do 5 minutes ago. And it's that self-esteem. And so all of these things came together, and I just had to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then K-Easy, we're keeping it easy. You focus on the life and the individual and improving that. So what got you not just wanting to improve your own life, but bringing a message to help others?
Yeah, so I have a background in education. I have taught for most of my adult life. And I started doing youth motivational speaking. Not as a joke, but for real. Just want to be clear. It sounds like a punchline, right? But I was doing youth motivational speaking. I was like, kids need to hear an important message. And they still do. And so I started a podcast called Young Legends. That was my first podcast geared towards teenagers. I like the content, and I like all the things that I was doing, but it was also like I knew everything I was talking about. Because, you're talking to a 16, 18-year-old, you know what I'm saying? Like, all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? And even though I was interviewing cool people, Olympians and stand-up comedians and YouTubers and whoever it is out there who's got their name in bright lights, I just kind of got a little bored with it. So I sold it to Rupert Murdoch. And I'm just kidding. Sorry. Did not do that. But
Tell me more.
Yeah.
How many
zeros? So yeah, it was a nice exit. But so I stopped doing that one, and then about a little over a year ago, I had the idea to do Your One Life for a while, just because I'm a self-development nerd. I find myself listening to audiobooks, just trying to figure out things to make my life better. I'd pick Alex's brain sometimes. I'm like, hey, tell me how to do this thing, whatever it is. So I was just like, I need it. Other people need it. You know what I'm saying? This is important. Let's get it out there to the people.
I love it. It sounds, mine was a little bit in between, where it was very much, I felt alone in the world, but I was very smart. So I knew statistically I couldn't be the only one to feel the way I feel, think the way I think, and do the things I want to do. And so I just started podcasting just to get it out and to see who I could find in the world. I guess it was and this is in 2004 when podcasting started. So yeah, it's like this concept of finding your tribe on the internet, in the world. I just knew it was there. I just didn't know it was there, right? And that's the first thing that changed my life and kept me going was, I think 8 episodes into my first show, a stranger wrote in and said, man, that story you told, it hit home. It helps me deal with my family. And I was like, that was it. This is what I'm going to do for my career. In late 2004, when nobody knew what podcasting was, and now you get to, except for Bobby Blackwolf, he was streaming before it was cool. And that's awesome. Love Bobby Blackwolf. We love having a VIP celebrity here. It's amazing. Love it. But how do events, with where we came from and where we are now, how does something like this today change how you do things versus going to a con, doing a panel, or just doing your show? How do you feel like something like Jam ATL changes what you do?
For me, I think it just expands my mind of because I'm in a room. Y'all understand? I'm in a room with either by myself or with a human on the other end of an internet connection, right? Yeah, exactly. He's my entertainment. But so it's just like I have thought about we should do more live events, and I feel like it's cool to listen to a podcast, but to your point of finding your tribe, you do want to be around people who are into what you're into, who are, trying to, whether, learn more about hip hop and how it can impact the world, or, Dragon Con and, all of those things, or whatever it is, So I think that we need to do more of these things. Connect with your tribe, have the fun that is less fun when you're in your room by yourself, right? So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I do a live stream. So I do pre-recorded, interviews sometimes, but then I do a live stream. Sometimes I do live interviews. And even going back to Blog Talk Radio, that was all live. So I've always done live, and then I do talks and I do some, speaking engagements and things like that, where you do get questions from the crowd, and it's a different dynamic. So I do the live stream, you get people in the chat, but you can't see their faces. And apparently, this is what I learned today. Your face can tell you how you're feeling. Right? But of course, but by the way, you break things down, it was great to remind you that, this matters. Like being in front of a person and seeing them, laugh at the things. I don't know that you laugh unless you ha in the chat. Like,
Right. You were missing that.
Right, but now I know I'm funny as hell.
There it is.
I didn't know this until. So you get some of that doing talk. What you're doing in talk, it's very structured. This is my points, and I'm trying to get paid. But when you're doing this, so it's just the next logical step, I think, to want to do sort of live shows. So when this opportunity came up, it's been in the back of my head. A couple of the other shows that I work on. Oh, and shouts to Bonfire Radio, Valencia, my friend. So, Bonfire Radio was ahead of their time. They did a live internet morning show for 1,000 episodes. So we've been around folks doing this, and through that live, kind of in-person hybrid, it brings out the best of what we do.
Big facts.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there, because local, you can reach so many people. On the internet, you can reach everybody, but you're not feeling that connection. And I feel like with what we all do here on this couch, and I think to a point, anybody who wants to step out and entertain, wants to step out and inform, wants to step out and be some kind of media creator, we're somehow trying to change the world, even if it's just a little speck of dust that we're standing on right now. And we can only change so much when it's one-sided perspective. Like, I do a lot of live as well, and I get that. We're putting it out, we're talking. I hate doing a live solo show. I admire how you do it. And I know you have a guest on a lot. You really have your story. You really have your
sometimes
news ready to go.
I ramble pretty well.
Don't give me started. We'll ramble. We'll have a ramble off. You can have a rap battle. Me and you have a ramble battle. So, but when you have that person to talk to, when you have the person in the audience to pull that out of you, then it becomes something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And to that end, we want you to pitch in here, ask your questions. Oh yeah, we got one right. Mark left.
No, he's right there. He's right there.
Mark really camouflage that pod jam just meshed right into the grade.
I was saying, plus when you're in person, you meet people that got Murdoch money.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
This is our new Kimyung industry.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going right.
All right. Yeah. Raise your hand if.
We got one right here.
There we go.
All right, live action. Awesome. This is pretty cool tech here. But yeah, I recently experimented with a tool from Google called Google Gemini.
Yeah.
It made like a scary real podcast by just supplying it with just limited amount of info. How has artificial intelligence affected your work? Where do you see it going? I know we had plenty of jokes about cassette tapes and blogs and newspapers. So I would love to know your thoughts on that.
I do like AI, but I will fully embrace AI when I can stick a pencil and fix it and rewind it back. That'll work. Yeah. What you guys?
I use AI to like write show notes, which I hate writing show notes. I don't know a podcast or a live who likes to write show notes. Obviously, you got to massage it and stuff. As far as what it does otherwise, I don't think it's ready to do a lot of the things that people are like AI is going to replace humans, but I feel like everybody will be using AI to some degree in their work, and podcasters aren't going to be exempt from that. I don't want an AI guest or anything, that's for sure.
I would like AI to interview me. I love talking about myself. What about you, Manny?
They have shows that do that.
Yeah, there's
AI interview shows where the AI interviews the guests. Yes,
it's crazy.
Got another question?
Well,
we got two, but
let's real quick, and then just because I have one thought. So there's some shows that I do that I do music sound design for, and when you score a thing, be it a documentary or a podcast or some kind of scoring, even though they make AI music and it's not going to have that same kind of human touch. So there's some things that will.
There's an energy missing.
Yeah, there's something. There's going to be something missing. I also have a very niche topic that the AI will get wrong.
Yeah.
Like I say, like they will get it wrong. This also larger topic, AI can be racist. Like they're not culturally. It's not culturally diverse. It's been programmed by people that, just kind of, I'm a programmer, listen to things.
Sure.
But it gets things wrong all the time. Like to the point where like when you use AI facial recognition, they arrest the wrong people. But to the point where someone tried to explain the Drake and Kendrick, Discord server. They were like, just explain it to me, I just don't know. And they copy pasted what AI said about it. And it was a very it broke it down. How like J. Cole made a song and mentioned it, and Kendrick responded, and then Drake, and then that was it. And I was like, yeah, but there's cultural nuances to that beat. Kendrick was calling him out for being an usurper, a colonist, a culture vulture, someone who's taking from the culture but not giving back. Yeah, I didn't know that shit. It makes because they just don't. It's not so. You're gonna miss a lot. So those things exist, but voices that are more nuanced are really important to counter that. Because otherwise you'll get stories wrong that affect people like real intimately.
Real.
And you're right, it is a little scary, but if you listen, you can tell something's a little off, right? I've had a friend of mine take some bio of mine or whatever and put it in there, and they questioned me. They questioned like, "See, really a rock out podcast?" They're like, "Shut up, you're AI. You don't know what you're talking about." Yes, I am. And but for me, it's a tool. It is. I do the show notes. Would be awesome together. We don't even know exactly what we're going to talk about. We just know we're going to be awesome and we're going to have a guest on, or not. Sometimes, like this week, it's just going to be us. But YouTube now does transcripts for free, and so you can take that transcript, throw it into for me to ChatGPT and say, summarize this for me, and break it down for Spotify, and we'll give a good description of it. And in my opinion, most show notes are not designed to grab an audience. It helps, but it's to grab the searches, all the certain algorithms and search bots.
So they know how to talk to each other.
Yeah,
algorithm knows talk out of the
I will
algorithm.
say if somebody physically doesn't have a voice, this is going to be a great tool for them. But for a lot of other people, they're worried about taking over. Right now, it's a tool. And, and I think some of what you're saying with the nuances is you can't be Manny, you can't be Kimyung, you can't be me. That's okay. So I think Doc here had one, and then we got one in the back.
Raise your hand if you got a question.
one right there.
Raise your hand if you're sure. No?
Whoa.
Nice.
Hello? Okay. Hi. So we are actually going to be starting a podcast soon, just kind of play around with it. And my question is, I would go for broadcast journalism, and then I act, and now I work for this guy. And my question is how you set up your show. So I'm a notes person. I'll have it on paper and like have specific things to talk about. Is it every episode you just go off and you don't even get to some of the points, right? Okay. I'm just curious. Do you have a computer screen? Do you have a paper in front of you? How do you keep track of what you're going over?
I've done different formats and different shows, so they are different. There's different ways. I think at the end it comes down to what works for you. And some of my shows, I do like radio segments. Like you listen to a radio show, like radio was this box.
Oh my God.
There you go. But so segments, right? Like today we're doing, it's like and everything's like so formatting it, because if I go off, I will just go off and it won't have any. So done that. I've done fully scripted shows where every word is written out, and the guy's an essayist, and he's just kind of reading off, thing, maybe some flourishes. So there's that way to do it. It depends on the show. Depends on the show and depends on the person. The good thing about podcasting is there's no rules, and the bad thing about podcasting is there's no rules. But you can experiment. You can find what I did, and I just go back to the very first thing I ever did, which was this Blog Talk Radio show, this New York Hip Hop Report, which I said was sports radio, but for New York hip hop. So before I did that, I listened to sports radio for 3 months.
Ooh, that's smart. Smart.
But I hadn't listened to learn.
There you go.
Right. So I listened to nothing but sports radio for about 3 months. And just the only one thing is that I learned how they hang up on people. There's a way to hang up, because you're taking a live call, and they'll be like, okay, and then the guy will be talking, he'll go back, and they'll go back and forth. It's enough, because they'll talk forever. So what you do is you basically say, click, thank you, I appreciate what you're saying. See, what he's saying is, and then you go off.
All right, thank you, Manny. So what Manny is saying is...
Exactly.
Woo!
So listen to the shows, the format you want to learn, see how they're doing it, and like kind of adapt it for yourself.
Yeah, to that point, I read a book. So a book is this thing you buy. But yeah, I read a book. That was How to Be Great at Radio, and then they republished it and podcasted.
Right.
That's funny.
So I went in and they put a little notes on it. Really, I learned the same thing.
Interview book, like how to interview somebody. Right?
Yeah,
how to interview someone.
How to run a radio segment.
Like for Walter Cronkite wrote it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah, and to that point of hanging, it's like if you are bored, your audience is bored. So do not be afraid to cut something off short. That's the biggest thing I took out of that book, because I'm way too nice. I just like to let people talk, not cut them off. And you can't do that. But to the notes section, like this is my show, Wise and Nerdy, here. And we have a very cool format of it's a question of the week, get you warmed up, get things going. And then there's 6 segments. We roll dice to figure out which segment's going to go in. So it's really bullet points. It is all, here's the segment, here's the bullet point that one of us is going to talk about. And that is it. The rest is storytelling and interviewing. We leave that space to let it go where it's going to go. Same with finding the stories. Like here, I'm leaving that space to let it go where it's going to go. But we know a direction, right? I saw you had your notes top here for your segment today.
Yeah. And I didn't use many of them, which is not typical for me with the podcast. But this is my first live in-person podcast interview. So, yeah. So, right? Wow. Yeah. So
this is a casting couch now.
No, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So. Wow. Okay. All right. Bring it back. So, what I will say is I think this is universally helpful. I believe that we need to spend less time on our computers and more time just analog. And so what I'll do is, it's not that I don't use the computer. I'll type some notes, and particularly if I'm doing like a solo episode, I have plenty of notes. I print those notes, and then I just take a pencil, a pen, I punch it up, I throw in jokes, I throw in new things, I retype my notes, then I print it out, and then I do like probably 3 iterations of that, just because for me, having notes is a rough draft. And if you want to have a really good podcast, you got to spend some time of just really, for me, being intentional about what you're going to say. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's helpful. Of course, when I interview people, I have a list of questions, and sometimes all those questions get asked. Sometimes most of them do. Sometimes very few of them do. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, there's a book by who wrote Big Podcast?
David Hooper.
David Hooper wrote a book called Big Podcast. Is available on audiobook as well. I feel like that's a great book. I mean, he has not paid me a nickel. I'm gonna send him a bill, but whatever. But like that is
Murdoch money.
Dude, you know what? It's how you grow to beyond. So Big Podcast.
Big Podcast by David Hooper.
By David Hooper.
Big Podcast.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, so that's a great resource. There's another book by Jessica Abel. I don't remember the name of it, but Jesse Thorne has a whole series on interviewing people. He talked to Larry King and all these big name people. So
interviewers.
Yeah. No, you know what? There is a ton of resources out there. Learn, do your thing.
Well, okay. Are you going to do it live or are you going to pre-record and edit? So there's no real pace, right? You record it and then afterwards.
That's what you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah.
Smack it, flip it, rub it down.
Yeah.
And on that note, any other questions?
So while they think of more questions, I'm going to give them some inspiration. We all have done interview podcasts. What's your favorite interview that you've done or the most exciting?
Oof, that's a tough one. I interviewed a lady named Shantae Lowe. She is a four-time Olympian. She is also a breast cancer survivor. I just love her energy. And she has got a message about breast cancer prevention. She was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 34 years old. As an Olympian, as a person who, as fit as a fiddle, right? But she was great. I mean, that's like picking your favorite kid, right?
Sure, yeah. Oh, I got a favorite kid.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go.
Not a problem.
There it is. So yeah, that's me.
Very cool. I introduced my kid now.
Yeah.
She's so good. Baby girl faces. She's actually very famous. She's like,
nice.
She's I'm more famous than you. Because like every time I'll do a thing, they're like, "Where's baby girl faces?" Like, you're watching my show. That maybe she does. I did some shows before this became like my main baby.
Yeah.
And the very first episode of this podcast was Dr. Bettina Love, and she's an educator. She's a brilliant person. She's from New York, but was in Atlanta for a long time. She's a school teacher. She's done hip hop education. She's been a Harvard fellow. She's written books. She's writing books now on school abolition movements, and this brilliant person. Talk about energy, super great energy, and just broke down everything. Like if you heard anything I said today, and you were like, okay, I just need someone to say it right. She set the tone for everything that I've done since then. I built literally this entire brand, which is now a book, and the book is a bunch of the interviews. She's the first chapter. She's
nice.
The first episode, nice. The first chapter. She broke it down, and she gave me this understanding of a deeper understanding of the idea when we talked about earlier. Being culturally connected, meeting children where they are, meeting people where they are. It's such a universal thing that we talk about with hip hop. It's not about hip hop. It's like, when I say, I'm not teaching you breaking moves, I'm teaching you self-esteem. I'm not teaching you hip hop, I'm teaching you universal commonality. And she broke it down from the beginning. Also how to understand different perspectives, being a Black woman, being a Black queer woman, being, from down south, working with young people. So many perspectives in one brilliant person set the stage for everything that I've done since. So shouts to you, Dr. Bettina Love.
Yes, sir.
Before I did all this and had my journey, I probably would have said you're sitting with celebrities, right? That's always been my goal. Got to do that multiple times, but my favorite was actually at a small con. We had probably 5 people in the audience. It was Mary Robinette Cowell, who is a sci-fi author, but she's also a puppeteer and a voiceover actress and a lot of these other things, and talking about that energy. And she would always love to find something random that I can connect with on this. I'll go to their IMDb page or wherever their website and try to dig down. Turns out she was, she was the hands on I told you, it's Spartacus. It was it's this kid's show out of like Sweden somewhere. I forget the name of it right now. But she was the puppeteer hands. I'm like, holy crap! It was the greatest kids show my kids could watch because it's very healthy, very energetic, very up there. And then I found out she actually wrote the backstory for a tower defense game that normally doesn't have stories, and she did that. So we were able to connect. But then she just started playing and engaging at the table, and she asked her about how do you do voice work, and she took her bag and turned it into a puppet, and then had it jump off the stage and do all the effects. It was amazing. And when you find somebody that can match your energy, and it changes. I think the best interviews are when it changes you as an interviewer in that way, and not just, hey, it's great 10 minutes, hour-long conversation that you had.
Yeah, myself.
Questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a question.
All right.
Paula has a question.
Coolest looking person in the room.
I know, right? Shame on you.
It's exercise.
Hello. So, they say for the hoopers, shoot your shot.
Yes.
And for the normal people, closed mouths don't get fed. So this goes to Manny Faces. Hey, baby. I'm liking that hoodie. I'm an indie podcaster, broke as fuck. So can I get a hoodie?
You can absolutely get a hoodie.
Shoot your shot, baby.
Absolutely.
Nice.
That's all. By the way, amazing. I had incredible time today.
Yeah.
I learned how to breathe. And I fell again in love with hip hop. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Awesome. And that's kind of my heart is that if you're not laughing, if you're not engaged, you're not learning. And I think everything I want to do teach people. But you both made people laugh. You picked a great guest, Kimyung. She was
phenomenal.
Point,
Yes.
Make people laugh.
Yeah. It's a high bar. Oh yeah. Yeah, those shoes are what's up. Yeah. 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 It's a shame we're podcasting right now because we need to see those.
You have to come next time, and if you was here in person, you see the boots.
There you go. There you go. Yep.
So family support, significant others, kids. How do you manage day jobs? How do you manage other things in your lives outside of your digital media?
You just neglect everything else, and you just go all in. Yeah. Listen. It's a struggle. My podcast goes out every other week because if I put one out every week, things wouldn't get done, and that is not the way I want to live. So, one thing I will say is if you, and this is something I'm not doing well on, but if you can performance enhancing drugs. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. If you can outsource stuff think about the amount of time or the value of your time, right? So let's say just round numbers, $100. Your time is worth at least $100 an hour, right? If you can pay someone $15, $20 an hour to do something that takes you an hour, then you're gaining $80, $85, right? And so I don't like spending money on my podcast. At the same time, it's like I'm just seeing the necessity of it. And so, if anybody wants to edit my podcast, holler at me.
I think he's sitting right next to you.
Nice.
Yeah, Manny's great at it. A friend of mine says, let those who are good at what they do what they do.
Yeah, facts.
And I kind of touched on it before, is sort of when I said find what works for you, that means, so I started live streaming because I was recording too many interviews and not editing them. Because I'm an editor and I'm editing shows for a living. So, this is shoemaker's son that have any shoes. Because, and I also am son of a college professor. I didn't go to college. Come on. So I did that, so I'm saying, but now I'm having trouble getting my own stuff out. Everyone else, you paying me, it's done. I'm gonna get it done. My own stuff wouldn't get done. So I said, what if I live stream? And I tell the guests to be there at 9:30.
Smart.
I have to be there.
Smart.
I have to do it. I have to get it. It's gonna be out and it's gonna be what it is. That means I have to get good at not being able to do something on the fly. So I had to get better at that.
That's great.
So that for me, I mind hacked myself to find the thing that would let me be consistent without taking me out of my game too much. Of course, now I post edit and now I got to chop it up into things. Ooh, this is an hour-long show. Now I got to find all these. I do the same amount of work. So it didn't work. Huh?
What do you guys use to edit?
Audio editing?
Audio edit, just like you film it.
Audition or Premiere. So the Adobe.
He's fancy.
That is a little bit higher, but if you're doing it professionally.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
I don't pay for the subscription.
Yeah. So I use actually, speaking of AI, I do use Descript to edit my podcast because it puts it in actual words. That is good. There's a program called Minvo that I edit my videos in. I just started using it, but that's really good.
There's like the clips, like
Yeah, the clip. It's just like Opus, but it's like cheaper.
Yeah. I like the clip. I want to use the clip thing so bad, and then every time I do, it's like it's just not exactly what I want. So I get it, you know, and I do it myself, and that takes too long.
Yeah.
It's $700,000 an hour.
And sometimes you have to do good enough's good enough.
Facts.
I get it. I understand. Yeah, but that's the thing. You try the tools that can speed up the process. If they work for you, good. If they don't, you know, then try something else. I used Submachine, which is a caption generator.
Okay.
It makes it fancy, and that's pretty good. I had to buy it, but it was like, $20, $30.
Yeah.
But I found, that helps do captions better than taking it and doing it painstakingly. So to your point, the tools that are available.
Sure, yeah.
Free what? Headliner. Yeah. I've used that before. Currently, I use Camtasia for any video. It's one-time fee typically. I think they swapped a subscription model now, but it wasn't when I got it. And I use Reaper, which is technically free for audio, and we're recording all this today on the audio on that. It's technically free, and it's on the honor system. It's like, look, if you don't want to pay, it's great. Just wait for this 5-second countdown that says pay for us, and we're good. You get all the features. But I'm telling you, only twice in my life have I paid for Reaper. I bought the first license for $60 because you have to make, like at the time, $60,000 just from editing to have a $120 license. Right. So $60 for 2 full upgrades lasted me 8 years.
Wow.
That finally went, hey, it's time to pay. I'm like, gladly. Here's another $60.
That's great.
And so it is worth the tools. Audacity.
Audacity.
Is a free one. Is a free audio one out there.
I still use Audacity after I run it through Descript, and then I also use what was the other thing? Riverside is great. Auphonic, I run it through on the back end after it's all done. But like, I don't know that my quality of audio is great. I think it's good enough. I feel like it's all right. Y'all might think different, but whatever. It's all good. But yeah.
I'm heavy on audio because, like I said, I do things that are sort of more like documentary, so I have Isotope.
I've heard good things. I've heard nothing but good things.
Well, I mean, to the point though, you tried other things out. You found your path, and you went, okay, now it's time to invest. You don't start with these microphones. You start with what's built into your laptop.
Exactly.
And thanks to 800E's for these, because we did not bring them in.
Those are.
But yeah.
It made me sound like this.
Very nice, Barry White.
As far as like internal growth and how we take paths and change. Everybody gets started, and that's a great thing to do, but you will ultimately grow and change. And the podcaster's addiction is, as soon as you do 10 episodes, you want to start a second podcast and a third podcast. But we've all, it sounds like, had podcasts that we took to a point in time, and then we retired it and left. What made you make that transition to a new show? What was it about you that said, this show isn't going to do where I want it to go? I got to do something a little different.
Oh, I already said my piece, so good.
Yeah, you sold it through part.
Yeah.
Through part.
Yeah.
Someone said, the riches are in the niches, right? And so I wanted to niche it down a little bit. I think a lot of podcasters are like, I want to do a podcast. We can do it about everything. That's like the fatal flaw, I think, a lot of times. I wasn't doing that. I had the Manny Faces show. Really creative title. And,
nice.
But and I was interviewing, but it was conversations with creatives. So same thing. Like,
that's cool.
You want to get like, I was in a world of creatives. I was working with a lot of musician friends and artist friends. I'm like, oh, you guys are amazing. Let's talk. And I did that for a while, and then like a bunch of them were hip hop because that was kind of where my main focus was. But it gave me the extension to say, well, you're not hip hop, but you're creative, and I want to have you on the show. So I had that. And then I started realizing that like this kind of topic lane, like when I did the magazine, it was New York, it was Birthplace Magazine, New York being the birthplace of hip hop. But if you were from like Connecticut, I was like, nah, I'm staying editorially focused on my niche. I'm going to become the expert, as it were, at this topic area. And that way I don't stray too far off, into different lanes. So when I was doing most of my interests, or most of the folks I were talking to were kind of in this lane, I said, this is now sort of where I want to focus. And then I started realizing the side benefits from that. You do become a thought leader. You do become an expert in a thing. You can get speaking engagements. You can do these things. So it's like you're not the everybody person, and some people do, and that's great. You could be the Terry Gross of, whatever. Sure. But I wanted to be like the guy that talks about hip hop being, in the intersection with all these education, mental health, therapy, science, technology, and be the only one that really knows all the people that do that. And so it's where I wanted to kind of, just focus on.
Yeah, I would say I heard some advice from one of the guys that lives in a Facebook group, and he said, if pick a podcast that you listen to podcasts about, like a topic that you listen to podcasts about and that you nerd out on, because eventually, if it's for any other reason besides like I love this thing, you're gonna burn out, and so don't be like, oh well, here's something that can get me to my next step. It's like, no, what if this is the next step? You know what I'm saying? What if you're successful in this and you're just like, oh, actually, I don't love this thing. I think I like it. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would highly recommend that anybody who's interested in something be very interested and just be locked in. Yeah. Facts.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk says in Crushing It, what's the one thing you will talk about at 2 a.m, no matter how your day's been? That's your passion.
Yeah, people's moms, but yeah, I don't know. I can make a podcast on that for sure.
He went there.
All of mine were internal growth. Like I've always opened up my mind to new concepts. So everything actually went reverse of what you did. I went niche and just kept getting, okay, I got a bigger picture of the world. Now I want to talk about this over here. And ultimately, now I do three mains. One is that storytelling where I just want to talk to somebody about what I want to talk to them about. Yeah. Then it is very much Wise and Nerds, where fatherhood meets fandom. It's me and my partner who are both fathers at different age kids going, how often do we get to talk about anime or a video game or this or that? Plus also going, man, my kid is stressing me out today. I got the favorite one, but I got my favorite one. And, so we talk about what it means to be us, essentially, but we cushion it in. Our audience is fathers who just have to go to work and come home, not have anybody go, well, my wife doesn't understand why I like this nerd thing. Or my kid is dealing with some crap at school, and we provide that. And then Be Awesome Together is very much about creators being creators and working together. And we do that with the DragonCon digital media track. But that's very much, I went wide and came back niche, and it was 3 different aspects of who I am, where I wanted to be.
And there's value to all that stuff. Like there's value to it. It's just again what works for you, and what we need someone to talk to all the people.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to talk to all the people.
So we have about 5 minutes left. So that's enough time for one more question from the audience. Anybody got a question? Bobby, got a question? Anybody? Bobby?
No. I guess you would.
No.
So,
Tyra,
let's feed the machine. Here we go.
I'm just here for you.
All right. So I'm going to ask in a minute. I'll ask you about self-help.
Yeah.
You talked about interviewing interviewers. So what's your favorite podcast in that niche?
Of interviewers?
Yeah. The one that gets you going, that you want to see every week, that you learn something from.
That do interviews. I'm really the best.
Nice.
There you go.
Well, baby girl faces.
Wow.
Famous.
There she is. That's the one.
That's my favorite one.
That's
This
good.
is my favorite one.
That's great.
I just want to say hi. I don't know. I don't have one. I don't have one. I listen to interview. I like listening to interview podcasts. I guess the classics, the fresh airs and those types. There was I will give a shout out to Combat Jack, the late great Combat Jack was a pioneer in hip hop podcasting. He was a lawyer and worked for like a lot of the rap labels over years. And he had a very like close relationship with a lot of like stars and celebrities. But was able to just bring him down to the human level.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So
Yeah,
Combat
yeah.
Jack inspired a lot of, if you look at the hip hop podcast lands with Joe Budden, Drink Champs, those Combat
that's
Jack
wild.
was probably an influencer for that. So I just want to give shout out to Combat Jack. I was doing my thing around the same time, but he passed away, in like his late 40s, really young. But he was an influencer to a lot of folks that are kind of in this lane. So shout out to Combat Jack.
And you like your self-development, you nerd on that. So what's your go-to what's your favorite self-development to listen to?
My favorite self-development to listen to as far as podcast goes, or what?
Sure, yeah.
Well, okay, so I would.
It could be it's just what motivates you. What's something you go to?
Okay, so a couple things. I would say that I spend a lot of time on Libby. If you don't know about Libby,
it's a library.
It's an audiobook app. I literally have a Libby T-shirt, and I wear it around, and people are like, "Dog, do you work for the library?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Do you work for Libby?" And I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "Why are you wearing that shirt?" And I'm like, "I have to support who helps me," And Libby has helped me out significantly. Besides that, I mean, there's a lot of podcasts that I listen to for self-development. I would say Tim Ferriss is one of them. I love Conan O'Brien, and that's not really a podcast about self-development, but I just love him, and I just want to give him his flowers as far as that goes. There's a few others, I'm sure. I can't think off the top of my head, but those are.
You're good. You're good. That's it. I was looking to know something that connects you to that humanness that you're looking for, and you both gave great answers. I've always wanted to be a better entertainer. Mine is Smartless.
No, yeah, they're good.
They're good actors, but they're just being human together and the friends and the entertainment. And so I just kind of learned to riff like that and just entertain. Sometimes you shut off and just entertain, and being entertained, you learn something.
They're good at it. Like a lot of people are like, I'm going to do a podcast with me and my friends. It's going to be great. And no, it's not.
Yeah, but
it's not. But theirs is good. And it's a good thing. And again, if you try to do that, listen to them so that you learn how to do it.
Yeah, because you can always learn from everything.
Yep.
That's right.
Big
All right.
facts.
Manny Faces, tell them where they find you again.
Yeah, hiphopcansaveamerica.com. That usually branches off to everything that I do, but I also have my own thing, mannyfaces.com. Talk a little bit about kind of the talks that I do, and the what do you call it? I can't even say what it is. Consulting and kind of work, that we go out doing, speaking and doing those things. But hiphopcansaveamerica.com. It's more about that than me. So that's where we go. Got a book coming in April. So
let's go.
Get your book money ready.
That was my favorite kid.
Yep. That's awesome. For me, so Your One Life podcast, and it's WON, not ONE. So Your One Life podcast.com on the Instagram and email as well. So yeah.
And I just want to throw in, by the way, we have some really great self-development people in the hip hop world.
Yeah.
Tony Blackman, who does the Wisdom of the Cipher. She got a great book out.
I'll check them out.
The point that I 100% want to recommend, and the other thing is, whatever you do, we got something for that too. So whatever you do, like hip hop can't make me a better plumber. I'm like, let me tell you about guerrilla marketing. Hip hop can do like no other way. So just trying to give a bigger plug. It's not just about this, but it's about what you do and help it out. So I want to recommend people that you need to talk to.
No, absolutely.
And vice versa.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll wrap out with myself in a second, but I want to say first, thank you to 800 East Studios.
Let's go.
And this is that's where I want to be. I don't want to be on the couch. I want to be up in the VIP. It's amazing. Thank you to Mark Deal for forefronting this thing.
Let's go.
Tyra Burton for all the creativeness and marketing. And Bobby Blackwolf, if you had introduced Mark and I multiple times over the years, this would not be happening today. Thank you, Bobby, for being a part of it.
Let's go.
I'm Charles Mcfall. You can find me Rock On Podcasting. It's Linktree/RGOP42 as everything that I do. And I think we're going to be doing some more stuff here in the future. It's awesome. So thank you all for coming out.
Yeah.
We love you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good deal, man.
Thanks.